Okay, it being 6:30, I will call to order this meeting of the Oregon School District Board of Education. It is Monday, February 21st, and we are at the OSD Innovation Center at Oregon High School. I do want to note that we are under a public health, Madison and Dane County emergency order. All individuals who wish to attend this meeting or speak for public comment must wear appropriate face coverings for the duration of the meeting. If you need a mask, we do have one available for you. So if you're in this meeting and you want to stay or you want to speak for public comment, you will need to put a mask on. Thank you. Okay, Katie, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Bijak? Here. Ms. Garrison? Here. Mr. Mehring? Here. Dr. Lakuta? Here. Mr. LeBrun? Here. Mr. Pankratz? Present. Ms. Flanagan?
Present. The board does have a quorum. I do have from Katie that this meeting has been duly noticed, if anyone would like to look at that, so we are good there. We do have a full agenda tonight. I am really excited to say we do have 2 high school students with us today that will be our board reps for a little bit, so we welcome Olivia and Sam, who will be speaking a little bit later, so welcome you guys. We're happy to have you here. We do have 2 boundary appeals tonight. We do have action item on 565 and 566. And then we do have a report on student supports, which is really going to be very informative for our families in our teaching and learning section. So that is our agenda for tonight. So I will entertain a motion to approve that agenda. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next on the agenda is our consent calendar, which is our minutes of previous meeting, approval of payments. We do have 1 staff resignation, and then I will read the following donations. We have a $200 donation from the Community of Life Church, which is a donation for family for social workers. We have a $200 donation from Steve and Renee Ackerman for the Oregon Brooklyn Splash Pad. We do have a donation for $20 from the Souter family for FES Cares. A $100 donation from the Faltersack family for FES Cares. We have a $1,500 donation from the Oregon Town and Country Women's Club for the Oregon Town and Country Women's Club scholarships. And then a $235 donation from the Oregon Choral Boosters for the Choral Octavos CD for PVE Chorus. So we really want to make sure those individuals that have donated to us, we really appreciate that for your support of our students in the district. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. We have a motion and there's a second. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Krista, sorry, just noting that I was not present for a portion of the executive session meeting on December 13th.
Okay, so Katie will note that in the consent calendar motion.
Ms. Garrison? Yes. Mr. LeBrun? Yes. Ms. Bijak? Yes. Mr. Mehring? Yes. Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Mr. Pankratz? Yes. Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Moving on to B, information items. We were supposed to have a graduation tonight, but the graduate was not able to be here, so we will do that at the next meeting. So next on the agenda is public comment. As you've heard me say before, District Policy 18005 provides an opportunity for the public to address the board. We value the public comment period and feedback from our stakeholders, but to comply with open meetings law and to ensure consistency, public comment will have the following parameters. Speakers will have 3 minutes in which to make their comments. Ms. Heitz will signal the speaker when their time is up. She will give them a warning of 30 seconds, is it? With a yellow card, and then red means your time is up. The board will not comment after each speaker and will reserve discussion to any items on the agenda. Speakers are welcome to stay for the meeting. Next steps following public comment may include referral to the appropriate administrator for follow-up with the speaker or placement of the matter on a future board agenda. Looks like we do have 5 speakers registered. So first is Andrew Drake. So Andrew, if you would come up to the microphone, and then the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
There we go. I don't think it's going to take all 3 minutes. Frankly, I don't think you guys really even listen to anyone that comes up here and talks. I sat up here probably about four months ago, and I tried to plead to you all with a sense of decency and with an air that you guys actually care about our kids and really meaningfully are concerned about their health and well-being. I asked that you consider a mask optional option for the Oregon School District, and obviously that didn't happen. What I did want to come today and share with you is just a few things that I've experienced with my own children over the last few months, and maybe that'll change some of your minds. So I have 2 kids that are currently in the Oregon School District. I have a kindergartner My kindergartner was getting out the door on a cold day, and she had her mask on, and she sneezed on her way out the door, and you could tell it was a very productive sneeze. And I said, honey, you gotta switch that mask out. And she started crying, and she goes, I had to wear a mask with boogers in it the whole day last week, and they wouldn't give me a new mask. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. How is that healthier than having a kid pull her mask down and sneeze into her arm like we taught her? Then my third grader comes home, and she comes home, I'm like, how was school? Oh, I got a headache. I didn't get any water today. I forgot my water bottle, and they wouldn't let me have a drink of water out of the water fountain because of COVID. So she didn't drink water all day long, and that's healthier. And then the other day, this is just last week, I'm telling her to get ready for school, and I say, honey, brush your teeth. It's the first thing people notice is your big, beautiful smile. And she goes, Dad, I haven't seen anyone smile in school in 2 years. And that shook me. You don't think mentally that's messing with our children? That they don't see smiles all day, every day? It's disheartening. And if you think that we're asking for a crazy, out-of-this-world thing, it's not true. I support the whole state of Wisconsin. I travel into schools. I travel into private businesses all over the state. And I see all the time, no masks. I talk to colleagues, and they talk about how their kids don't have to wear masks, and life is relatively normal. They don't have the issues that I see my children having. Just so you know, I spent the last 3 hours looking at property outside of Oregon. The school district, it's a joke. And you guys, you all sit here and post on social media without a mask, and you sit on your righteousness and preach like you're trying to take care of our children. It's just not true. Just look at your own social medias. It's crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Next up is Kira Dill.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Kara Dill. I live here in Oregon. I have one kiddo in the district and another entering in the fall. I'll be speaking first on behalf of myself, and then I'll be speaking second on behalf of my husband. He's scheduled to go right after me. He's got bad eyes, so I'll be reading for him. I last spoke in August advocating for a mask optional return to school, where I highlighted the importance of choice, the harm the district's quarantine and mask policies had caused children and would continue to cause. That was 7 months ago, and everything I said was as true then as it is now. But now, it's okay to say, because someone very powerful finally gave the green light to speak on the data we had a year and a half ago. Doesn't that make you mad? Doesn't it just infuriate you that the CDC confirmed just this morning that they've been withholding data from the public because of how it would be interpreted, and just last week announced they would rather lower standards for speech in early development to avoid admitting the damage masks have done to children? Yet, you're all just supposed to follow their messaging anyway. To argue against parents and somehow look at our kids and tell them they are mandated to wear a mask anyway. Not if you want to wear one, wear one. At the last school board meeting, Troy, you said you were most concerned with case counts and wanted a phase-in approach, but you're choosing to first unmask the group with, according to Oregon data, the highest COVID case count, completely disregarding that the 4-year-olds, who are statistically the least at risk, as Oregon data shows, have the lowest counts. After everything you have in front of you detailing the destruction your masks and quarantine policies caused in an effort to keep them from getting COVID, parents and students pleading, trying to articulate what you took from them. Connection to their friends and teachers, relationships, ACT exams, state tournaments, prom, graduation, a normal school experience. After experts have already said cloth masks don't work, and like Gina, wrestling with our kids to force them to wear N95s. What did they get? They got RSV, croup, bacterial pneumonia. They got COVID anyway. States across the U.S. are now repealing their mandates, 2 years of masking in Dane County and just coming out of the highest period of cases yet. If mask mandates work, why didn't they? Why were public health medicine Dane County's policies good enough the last 2 years, but not now? As a parent, it feels like now that public health medicine Dane County isn't saying what you want them to say, you're losing control, and you don't want parents to have a say. By first unmasking the group with the highest COVID numbers, you're again telling us science and data doesn't matter. But if Public Health Madison and Dane County mandates come back again, we do have to reenact their policy. The science never changed. As Mary knows, science doesn't change. It's like gravity, a constant. What changes is our understanding of the science, and that changes based on data. The FDA being court compelled to admit their PCR test was faulty and would yield false positives when kids had the flu. Doesn't that enrage you? Why do they have to be court compelled by a court? Data that shows in the last 2 years, teenage suicide has spiked, reading rates and graduation rates have plummeted, mental health issues, speech delays, school performance scores, Oregon's school performance scores. How we interact with each other has changed. The trust and faith we once had in leadership has changed. This board told parents that quarantine policies were dictated to us, and that is not true. We question your leadership when you allow the students with the highest cases to be the first to have options. We question your leadership when the president invites a partisan speaker to speak at length on normalizing masks like they do in China, but never invited in-town experts that have a different perspective. Same expertise level. Parents get 3 minutes to speak, to stand up for their kids, and in this town, few are willing to get up in front of a microphone, but you need to know there is an army of angry parents. It takes a lot of guts to voice an opinion that's different than yours, but if we leave our children a world where we never stood up, they will inherit a world where they can't. Sensible policies need to be enacted. Governor Evers said just last week he trusted parents and children should not be political pawns. Schools down the road across Wisconsin and all over the U.S. have dropped their quarantine and mask policies because after 2 years, after a vaccine, after boosters, after masks, after double masks, after N95s, they still got COVID. But what happened after they dropped their mandates and quarantine policies? Rates plummeted, kids cheered and smiled, and we finally got to see those smiles. I want to thank those on the board who fought for choice, who gave a voice to the voiceless, who listened to parents' concerns, who didn't advocate against options just to turn around and vacation in Florida, who supported mandating masks but took pictures maskless in huge crowds or at parties. I do want to thank the teachers. I especially want to thank the teachers who reached out to me directly to voice their support for a mask-recommended environment because they're concerned for the kids. My personal experience with Oregon's teachers and school administration has been nothing but incredible. I am enormously grateful to the teachers. This has been a horrible uphill battle that really makes you wonder if masks ever worked as intended, then the coercion, manipulation, and mandates wouldn't have been needed, especially in this county and in this town. But after 2 years, I can't help but wonder why the battle was so hard when all we ever asked for was an option. March 1st, no more quarantines, mask optional for
Thank you,
all
Kira.
kids, for the children.
Jesse Bjork? Did I say that correctly? I'm sorry.
Okay, I didn't know how to pronounce it when I first met it. Public speaking is one of my greatest fears, but I feel strongly about this, so I came tonight. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for helping me open my eyes and finding my voice. Like many others, we came to Oregon School District because we heard how it was a great place to learn. Excuse me. The Oregon School District is full of wonderful teachers. In the 2 years my children went to Netherwood, they had amazing teachers that helped my children grow both academically and socially. Unfortunately, the superintendent and most of the members of the school board are not as amazing as the teachers. When COVID first hit, it was understandable to pause in-person instruction because we were unsure of it. Parents did what they could to help their children through the last 2.5 months of school, fully expecting a return to fall. But when virtual school was thrown at us in the fall and left many people scrambling on how to make it work. My then first grader was able to start going to class for 10 hours a week in October, and he was to learn how to read and write. My third grader struggled not only with her learning, but her social and emotional, because she was living in the country and we could not get a reliable internet to support the Zoom lessons. She missed Zoom lessons and any interaction with classmates often because where we lived didn't support virtual learning. I sent emails about our problem, but nothing was ever resolved. Mid-October, I saw the writing on the wall and I knew my children would not have full in-person instruction anytime soon. So I found a private school 10 minutes from my house that worked all summer to come up with a plan to provide my children with the type of education they needed. When Public Health, Dane County wanted to shut school down, and Dane County school and superintendents communicated with each other that they should include both public and private schools in the name of equity, private schools fought to keep schools open. I asked, where was this fight to get public school kids into school? I'm incredibly thankful for our private school because while third graders in Oregon didn't go back to school at all until January, and full-time days until after spring break, my third grader was able to go full-time days the moment she walked through the door in October. While Oregon schools made children wear masks outside for recess and kept classes in groups for recess, my first grader was able to play with anyone he wanted on the playground unmasked. While my son's teacher worked hard to help him catch my first grader up in reading, Oregon students struggled to learn to read and write on an iPad. How do you learn to read and write on an iPad? Our new school isn't perfect and required masking to start school, but this fall they allowed families to file mask exemptions for their children. Because our kids suffered from headaches, we got a note from our doctor. The school accepted the note and allowed our children to be unmasked in the classroom.
Let her finish.
They didn't make parents jump through hoops for an exception like the Oregon School District did. When our exemption was approved,
Jesse,
our
your
children
time
were
is up.
able to sit in the classroom with classmates unmasked all day. They were not expected to leave and Zoom in a small space by themselves in order to take their masks off. Even unmasked in the classroom, my children were never made to quarantine when a classmate got COVID, not even when their best friends did.
We have
So
other
why am I
people that
here
would
today
like to
if
speak.
My children don't go to Oregon schools anymore. I'm here because I have family, friends, and children that I love in the district, and it breaks my heart these families are still forced to mask. I hate that Oregon is still quarantining healthy children, where my children have had a halfway normal school experience for the last 2 years, along with thousands of children in Wisconsin. Oregon students have missed countless days of school because they have been kept out of the classroom. My children are able to sit in friends with a homecoming parade and enjoy the air, while Oregon children are made to mask outside for theirs. Something as simple as talking to a friend
I
at
can
lunch
actually adjourn the
or a
meeting right now and we
playground.
could keep where we're at with the mask policy. Thank you. Nikki Holtzen.
The week of finals at the high school, I received a call on Friday afternoon stating that my son had been named as a close contact on Monday, and I needed to pick him up from school right away. So he'd been at school on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 2/3 of the day on Friday, and now I needed to pick him up. He was perfectly healthy, felt fine, wears his mask every day. So why would you remove a perfectly healthy child from class on the Friday of finals? If the district had record of him being vaccinated, he could have stayed, even though those that are vaccinated can contract and spread the virus. When he was back at school the next week, he found out that the person who tested positive for COVID sits in the second row of his class and my son sits in the fifth. How was he a close contact? And how was removing him from school for the afternoon helpful at reducing the spread of COVID? My fifth grader at RCI sits at a rectangular table every day for lunch with one student at the other end of the table. Every student in the cafeteria faces in the same direction. My daughter has been corrected for turning around to talk to a friend during her lunchtime, which should also be a social time. My seventh grader sits at a table with 5 other friends, all facing each other. Why can't our 10-year-old share a meal with multiple friends? Why are they not allowed to socialize during lunch? If it's about vaccination, again, those who are vaccinated can still contract and spread COVID. Also, I imagine the vaccination rates will stay pretty much consistent going forward, as anyone that's school age or older has had plenty of time and opportunity to get vaccinated. My 10-year-old also has very sensitive skin. Throughout the winter, she has been struggling with a rash on her face under her mask. She has a prescription that she uses to try and keep it clear, but a couple weeks ago, her face was scabbed and bleeding. Her prescription medicine stings when it's applied to her raw face, and she chokes back tears as I apply it. I tell her to take more mask breaks, but she's afraid to do so because, again, she doesn't want her teachers to have to correct her. She's an obedient rule follower. She doesn't want a mask exemption from her dermatologist because she doesn't want to be the only one in her class. Yet I know that if masks were not required, there would be many of her friends in her class that would not wear them. She has gone to sleepovers, birthday parties, soccer tournaments, dance competitions, etc., where she's with her friends unmasked. Across the state, masks are optional for 10-year-olds. It's time for Oregon to join them. Because my kids are involved in extracurriculars in Dane County, they have been masked for as much as 12 hours straight in a day. 10 minutes south and across the rest of the state, parents are allowed to parent. They choose what's best for their kids in regards to masking and quarantining. Oregon has a fork in the road where they can choose to slowly peel back the COVID protocols with new sets of rules at every turn, confusing students, parents, teachers, and admin, or you can rip the Band-Aid off, join the rest of the state, and allow families to choose for themselves how to proceed. If you're allowing your children the freedom to socialize with friends unmasked, share meals with friends unmasked, regardless of vaccination status, then please allow parents and the fellow parents in your community to make those same choices for their children.
Thanks, Nikki. Okay. Oh, Trent Schaefer?
Well, I was going to come up here and be real nice, but then I heard the comment that you would shut the meeting down and keep the mask mandate going because somebody spoke more than 3 minutes. Wow. Talk about power and control. Anyway, I was going to be nice until I heard that ridiculous comment. I moved to Oregon about 6 years ago with my family. Loved this village. Absolutely loved it. Got 4 kids in the district, so yes, I'm paying lots of taxes. Going into a little background, my parents both taught for 42 years, so I'm not just some hack coming up here that doesn't know how schools operate. My brother's a teacher now for 22 years. I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Every public high school out there is bigger than Oregon. None of them wear masks. They're all fine. Kids aren't dropping dead. They're all fine. Everybody's fine. They played sports in 2020 even. We actually had to drive out there in 2020 so we could watch a football game in the fall because we decided not to play football here in the fall. Some of the schools that recently went mask optional, we got Verona. They're like, 7 miles away? Belleville, maybe 6, 7 miles away. We have Wanakee, Middleton, Stoughton. All these schools are mask optional now. I don't know why we would be any different from those schools. I have a 7-year-old. I keep hearing, oh, it's a new normal. My 7-year-old cries all the time. She hates masks. She doesn't know what her teacher looks like. We saw her teacher at Target. She didn't know what she looked like. She hasn't seen her face. I have an 11-year-old who gets headaches. He has to play in basketball games with masks. Everybody else that's playing doesn't wear masks. We played Portage this weekend, but Portage didn't wear masks, but we did. We were playing right next to them. The refs don't wear masks. They're fine. I have a sophomore in high school. He hasn't come to school without a mask yet. He missed all of freshman year. These kids are missing all these important events. And I don't know if anybody in this room cares that's sitting at these tables. I don't know if anybody cares. This has turned into a political nightmare is what it's turned into. And sadly, people are choosing a side, and that's what we're going with. But at some point, we got to use some common sense, okay? Have we, you can't even see if a kid's smiling right now. You can't see that I'm angry right now, maybe in my voice, but you can't see from my face. My 7-year-old is not learning the basic skills in school because she's wearing a mask. You can drive 7 miles south and my 7-year-old could have a great time. No mask and she'd be just fine. The data is very clear on this. This should be, how many votes are in here? It should be something to 0. If anybody votes to keep the mask, I really question what your deal is. I question your integrity. I question a lot of stuff about you. I don't have money to send my kids to private school. I know some in here do. I don't. And by the way, my wife is a nurse. If you think that I don't know what's going on in the hospitals, I do. I get the UW updates all the time. I know right now there's very few patients in there that have COVID. And I also know that most of them that are in there aren't there for COVID. They're there for other reasons, okay? So let's start using some common sense and let our kids live their lives.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schaefer. That concludes public comment. We will now, we have OEA representative here, but I don't believe they want to speak tonight. So now we will move on to the student report. So I will have Dr. Bergstrom introduce our students.
I'm very excited to have our students here tonight. They're part of the Superintendent's Advisory Council, and they are working hard to infuse student voice and perspective into decisions that are made in the school district. So tonight I'm introducing Olivia Ferris from grade 10 and Sam Youngers from grade 11, and they will be here with us for 4 meetings. And then when their 4-meeting term is done, we'll have Nate Majeski and Peyton Schroeder, who are both grade 10. And we also have a 9th grader, Ryan Fahey, watching from home, and he is taking notes and will be doing an update on Panther Vision. So our students are very involved in what's happening right now within the school district in multiple areas, and they've identified some things that are of particular concern to them. And they'll be discussing that with you tonight.
Hi, my name is Sam Youngers. Hi, my name is Sam Youngers. Olivia and I will be your student representatives on the school board for the next 4 meetings. We both applied and are on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. This is a group of students that are working with Mrs. Bergstrom to give a student perspective. We volunteered to be student representatives because we both want to share not only our voices, but the voices of all students at OHS so we can create a better school experience. I would first like to speak about safety here at OHS. From the student's eye, safety is something that can mean many things. In-school safety, online safety, out-of-school safety, and many other forms of safety. As students, we feel for the most part that we are safe in school at OHS. OHS admin does a great job of keeping our students safe when we are in school. Online safety, however, is a whole nother issue. This is an issue that most students at OHS feel very strongly on, and I believe that OHS needs to improve, whether that means more substantial consequences, digging deeper into the actual issues, or maybe just educating students on online safety a little more often. Another part of safety is making people feel safe in school. People of color, Latinx, people of the LGBTQ+ community in school and online, we should be making this a priority. The Students Advisory Council is wanting to discuss this issue more, as well as learning more about the topic in order to propose solutions. Thank you for your time. Olivia will now speak on the social aspect of life at OHS.
So recently, the Addams Family play, which was directed by Mr. Doucette and Mrs. Yancey, was shown on the 18th, 19th, and the 20th. It was very successful, and many people who saw and acted it enjoyed it very much. The Black History art display by Desiree Mayo has also caught a lot of student attention. As a fact, art triggers the brain to release dopamine. So not only has this piece of art brought more awareness to students about Black History Month, it also allows students to walk in school and see something beautiful. And then a congratulations to the boys swim team who went to state last weekend. It was held in Waukesha and they placed 6th. 3 records were beat by 3 different students, and this was the first time OHS got under a minute in the 100 breast. Many projects are also going on and that are run through different clubs. Student Council starting their spring projects, which is a car wash, flowergrams, a sports fundraiser, and then also care packages for the Children's Hospital. FFA is having a homeless care package drive, and NHS is running a book drive. Masks have also been a topic of concern for students. They've created a massive divide and have even been the cause of altercations. We believe that yes, the safety of students from COVID is a great priority, but also keeping the community values and the aspect of working together should be a priority as well.
Just to finish off, the Superintendent Student Advisory Council is also we're going to create a Google form that students can fill out during school hours, outside of school hours. And as students' representatives, we can gain more information from the students so we can have a well-rounded voice when we come to next meeting. So we'll have more feedback on what the students actually have concerns about. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you guys spending the time with us, and we look forward to hearing from you and listening to you and working with you. So thanks for being here, both of you. Okay, we are now moving on to agenda item C, which is a public hearing and action item. The first is a public hearing to alter school district boundary, detach property from Albany School District and attach to Oregon School District. Petitioners Eric Klitzman and Chrissia Martinson, N8439 Smith Road, Brooklyn, Wisconsin. I'm going to call this meeting to order. As chair of this public hearing on reorganization pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 117.12, I hereby call this meeting to order. I am Krista Flanagan, President of the Oregon School Board. Let the record indicate that the board agenda, which sets forth the date of this hearing, also contained my role as chair tonight. We have before the board a petition to detach from the Albany School District and attach to the Oregon School District. First order of business is to appoint a secretary, and I recommend that Ms. Heitz serves as the secretary for this hearing. So I will entertain a motion to this effect. So moved. Is there a second? Katie, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Pankratz? Yes. Ms. Garrison? Ms. Skijak? Yes. Mr. Mehring? Yes. Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Mr. LeBrun? Yes. Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Next item is to introduce the Board of Education members that are present. So I will start with Mr. Mehring. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Kevin Mehring.
I'm Anna Bija.
I'm Tim LeBrun. Troy Pankratz.
Heather Garrison. Mary Lakuta.
Thank you. Unless there is an objection from the floor, the notice of hearing will not be read by the clerk. Is there any objection? Okay, seeing none, I will move to the statutory criteria. The school board shall consider and weigh the following factors as they affect the educational welfare of all children of the school district affected by the proposed detachment pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute Section 117.15 and may consider other appropriate factors. A, the geographical and topographical characteristics of the affected school district, including the estimated travel time to and from school for pupils in the school districts. B, the educational needs of all children residing in the affected school districts, the educational programs currently offered by each affected school district, and the ability and commitment of each school district to meet those needs and continue to offer those educational programs. C, if the territory is proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to the adjoining school district, whether the proposed detachment will have any adverse effect on the programs currently offered by the school district from which the territory is proposed to be detached, including both curricular and extracurricular aspects of that program. D, the testimony of the written statements filed by the residents of the affected school districts. E, the estimated fiscal effect of the proposed reorganization of the affected school districts, including the effect of the apportionment of assets and liabilities. F, whether the proposed reorganization will make any part of the school district's territory non-contiguous. And G, the socioeconomic level and racial composition of the pupils who reside or will reside in territory proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to an adjoining school district, in territory proposed to be included in a new school district under Statute 117.105, or in school districts proposed to be consolidated or in a school district proposed to be dissolved. The proportion of the pupils who reside in such territory who are children at risk as defined under Statute 118.153(1)A, and the effect that the pupils described in this paragraph will have on the present and future socioeconomic level and racial composition of the affected school districts and on the proportion of the affected school districts' enrollments that will be at risk. Next is overview of the petition, and at this time I will ask Dr. Bergstrom to present an overview of the petition to provide a common background of developments and issues for the school board and those present at this meeting. Dr. Bergstrom?
Hello. I just want to make sure that the petitioners actually have the packet. Are the petitioners present and have the packet? Just want to make sure that you have it in front of you so that you can, okay, thank you. Very good. So I will be walking through the packet of materials that the board has been presented with. I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the information that we have. So the first you'll see is what we often refer to as a purple, and it's the outline of the data and the summary and recommendations that are connected to this particular hearing. The next thing you'll notice in the packet is the chair's agenda, and that's what we have been working with thus far. So that's what we've been following in the hearing up until this point. And that goes for a couple of pages, and there are a few more pieces that are a part of that agenda that we'll be getting to soon. The next thing in the packet is the letter from the petitioners, and that is Mr. Eric Klitzman and Ms. Crecia Martinson, and they reside at North 8439 Smith Road in Brooklyn, Wisconsin, and that is the property that is in question today. And they have 4 children, and all of those children currently attend the Oregon School District and have attended since kindergarten. And there's a family history of attending schools within the Oregon School District. The next thing you see in the packet is the actual petition that the family puts together and submitted related to this particular piece of property. And then you will see that there are some signatures of some of their neighbors. However, the petition is only for their property. Now we'll move a little bit further because I'd like you to take a look at the maps. And that's just a bit down. You see there's one that was submitted as part of the petition and the records from Greene County. But I think the more helpful maps are the pink map that you'll see, as well as the aerial view. So I want to draw to your attention where the property owned by Mr. Klitzman and Ms. Martinson is on the pink map. You can see how it's outlined in black, and it's across the street from the property that is assigned to the Oregon School District, because currently their property is in the Albany School District. Then you can also, it's better to be able to imagine where they are and where their neighbors are in relation to them if you take a look at the aerial map that has their address in red. After the maps, then you will see that there is quite a bit of information about the appeal process, or the boundary appeal process itself, from DPI and the state statute on which that is connected. So if the petition to detach from the Albany School District and attach to the Oregon School District is granted, then we would send a letter to the Albany School District after this hearing to let them know what this school board voted to do. And as is stated in the purple that I referred to previously, the Oregon School District Administration recommends accepting the petition. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So before taking testimony, I'd like to review the rules applicable to this hearing. This is an informal hearing, but we will record all of the information presented. Each person offering information will come to the microphone. Please state your name, address, and school district, and speak distinctly so that we can be sure that your information is recorded. The procedure is to hear from the proponents and the opponents of the petition. The proponents, those people asking the school board to transfer the territory, will be heard first. Following the proponents, the opponents of the petition, those people who do not want the territory transferred, will be heard. And then following the initial presentation by both the proponents and the opponents, there will be a short time allotted for rebuttal and/or summation by both sides in the same order as before. So we will start with the proponents of the petition. So if they would like to come to the microphone. And if you could give your name, address, and school district, please. And there is no time limit for this type of hearing.
Eric Klitzman, Albany School District. I went to Oregon, Brooklyn School, and my kids have all gone to Oregon, Brooklyn, and as well as my girlfriends. So it's been 10 years in the making, trying to do something different, trying to get in the district, get the bus to pick them up, rather than walking up to the corner of the road intersection, I guess. So I do know that Albany reviewed it, they shot it down. So I don't know really where we go from here. So that's about all I know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any opponents of the petition that would like to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. So we'll, at this time, we will close the public presentation on this position and open the school board deliberations. The only information presented hereafter will be on the request of the school board members concerning the information received by them or brought out in this meeting. Are there any questions or information that any board member would like answered or clarified? And you are also allowed to state your thoughts on this petition as you speak if you'd like to do so. So I'll open the floor. Tim, go ahead.
The most important thing to me is what would be different if this petition were approved versus the way things are today. What is the benefit to approving this petition?
Dr. Bergstrom, do you want to take it, or Andy, do you want to take it?
I think right now for the family, it would be really about guaranteeing access to transportation because they are currently open enrolled, and once they are open enrolled, they stay open enrolled. So that's a good thing. But I think transportation is a significant factor for the family right now, and that's probably the main piece. But I would, welcome if there's something else that I'm missing there. That's probably I'd like to be corrected.
Question. It looks like our buses go by their property today. Looks like that's relatively new this year, likely because there are others that are already in the school district that require the bus to go by there. Does that, going forward, just as we've accepted the school choice in the past for the last 10 years, once we begin transportation services, is that something that is ongoing as well? Whether or not there's another person already in the school district to pick up in that area.
Correct. If they were in our school district, we would be obligated to provide transportation to that address.
But if they're not in our school district, although we are using the buses today to pick up the kids, is that something that is permanent, just like the school choice decision that was made?
No, policy requires, policy and state law. We are not able to unless we get permission from Albany to bring our buses into another school district. So that's point one. Point two is we wouldn't change our bus routes specifically for an open enrolled student. We would only go to where we need to go for residents.
Gina, just a point of clarification. Do I need to invite her in with a question based on this point of the hearing?
You would, because you've closed the
Okay.
public presentation.
So as a board member, I'd like to hear your view on this
Open
situation.
enrollment is really big for us. I mean, granted, our kids have been open enrolled this entire time. However, that's not a guarantee. Transportation, for sure. I mean, we have 4 kids. The bus, the last 2 seasons, we've graciously with the school district and the transportation, they have made arrangements to get our children, but they don't have to. But they're doing it to get our kids to school with COVID and all that. So our kids have to walk quite a distance in a very busy road to get the bus, which isn't fair to them. But it would be nice for the bus system to come down to pick up the kids like normal and take them where they need to be. I'm very thankful, or we are very thankful for the school and the transportation to do what they're doing. They don't have to, but our risk is our 4 children, 11, 2 13-year-olds, and a 16-year-old, could be denied to go in Oregon. And they've been there since, 4K, and we want to keep them there. I mean, our whole family lives and breathes Oregon and Brooklyn area. We have nothing to do with Albany. I mean, it's a great community, I get that, but we've always been Oregon and Brooklyn. So I really hope you guys will approve this. Yes, Albany did not. And if, you do not, either way, we're going to push this because I think it's fair for the kids, education. It's not about money, it's about the kids. And I just really, really hope that you guys push this forward. It's been a long haul. Katie and I have worked a long time. It's been a long, long time. So I'm really hoping that you guys will push this along because it's about the kids. I don't want to be just one component. We have to look at everything in general.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, does any other board member have any questions? Go ahead, Troy.
Point of order, Ms. Flanagan? Would you like to ask if any opponents would like to respond?
Okay, sure. Are there any opponents in the audience who would like to respond to her comments? All right, hearing none. Troy, go ahead.
I'll just reiterate, it is always about the kids. That's what we're here for. We are also, as a board, I think that we do have a fiduciary responsibility to our taxpayers. So I guess in this case, to to approve the petition would, as I see it, would create two benefits for the Oregon School District. We would increase our tax base by that additional property, and we would also make up a difference in the open enrollment costs. So if I have that right, Andy's nodding his head. So I would support this petition to approve the request.
Thanks, Troy. Heather?
I would also support this. I just wanted to, this is new information for me, and I think what a testament to the Oregon School District for going above and beyond what we have to do, and thank you for pointing that out. Just another example of the things that Oregon does for the kids and to make it as good of a situation as possible. While walking on a road is not great, hopefully this will change that, but I think I just wanted to highlight that it's an important piece of this story.
Thank you, Heather. Kevin, go ahead.
I don't think I missed it in the pack, but just to be safe, we've heard that Albany's against this movement, but have we gotten anything official from them in terms of letters, contacts? Was it in the pack and I just missed it? Or okay.
We did. We've received a letter from Albany School District.
And it's not in the packet?
It is not.
Because?
We haven't included those types of letters in the past, so we didn't think to do it this time.
And that is not atypical. Usually school districts want property and school districts don't want to give it up if they have it. So that's pretty typical. And then Leslie, do you want to talk about the process in terms of what happens if a school district does deny, we approve? What's the next step in the process? Because I know some board members have not been through this process before.
And I've certainly observed it. Andy, I think you might be most familiar with it. Would you mind speaking about what happens at the appeal hearings in May, potentially?
Yeah, so when one school district approves and one denies, it goes to a three-person panel called the School Property Boundary Appeal Board. And these are made up of 3 school board members, so peers of yours, from a small, medium, and large school district throughout the state of Wisconsin. Basically, there's a hearing similar to what we're undergoing right now, where the proponents and the folks that don't want it to happen present information, testimony, and then there's the Property Appeal Board basically takes the testimony and renders a decision typically about a month after they hear the hearing. So there are the criteria that we actually have in the packet, and they use the same exact criteria that we use to basically judge whether to move it or not move it.
Is it typical for Albany in this case not to show up to be a counter argument? Is that pretty typical?
Yes.
They would wait for the appeal process?
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, moving on then to what our options are. I'll have Dr. Bergstrom review the options and criteria again before I entertain a motion.
I will just quickly go through what the criteria are and how, in our estimation, this proposal meets or does not meet it. And the first is the geographical and topographical characteristics of the affected school districts. And basically, according to Google Maps, the Brooklyn Elementary School is slightly closer to the petitioner's property but the other schools within the school district would take a little more time to get to than it would for them to be able to get to Albany. The next criteria is related to the educational needs of all of the children residing in the impacted school districts. And how does this impact that in any way? And basically, no, it wouldn't impact programming at either school district. We are slightly larger, so we are able to probably offer other types of programs, particularly at the high school level, but this particular proposal doesn't impact either school district in that way. The next, if the territory proposed is detached from one school district and attached to the other, would it have any adverse effect on programming currently? Once again, the answer to that is no. The next criteria is related to the testimony and written statements of those affected, and you were able to read that in your packet this evening. We've only heard from proponents on this petition, other than the letter from the Albany School Board stating that they denied the petition. The next criteria is the estimated fiscal effect of the proposed reorganization. And this one parcel, just one, shouldn't have a significant impact on either school district. And then finally, will the proposed reorganization make any part of the school district's territory non-contiguous? And we do not see that we are creating any area of being non-contiguous because their property is right across the street from Oregon property. And then the final criteria related to socioeconomic level and racial composition doesn't have an impact on this particular petition, nor does the statute that is related to a referendum about the dissolution of a school district. So basically, because none of the criteria are met in a negative way, that is one of the reasons that we as an administrative team are supportive of the petitioner's proposal.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. So moving into motions, we have two motions to consider. Potential motion one would be to grant the transfer of the territory described in the petition, that the reorganization requested in that petition be granted and an order entered detaching the territory described in said petition from the Albany School District and attaching said territory to the Oregon School District, or to deny the transfer of territory described in the petition, that the reorganization requested in the petition that is filed detaching territory in said petition from the Albany School District and attaching said territory to the Oregon School District be denied and that said petition be dismissed. So I will entertain a motion at this time. Tim.
I'd like to move to grant the transfer of the territory described in the petition.
I'll second that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do I call discussion at this point in time or not for this petition? Yeah, okay. Is there any discussion on that motion? Any discussion from any board member? Okay, hearing none. Katie, can you please call the roll? Oh, sorry, we vote by ballot. So if you would vote by ballot, fold it in half, and then Katie and Gina will come around and could collect it.
Thank you.
So I'm now authorizing Ms. Heights and Ms. Jonan to tabulate the results of the ballots. Okay, motion carries 6-1. Now I'll actually entertain a motion to adjourn. Sorry. Do we have to adopt the resolution by vote? Okay. So now we have to, I have a motion on the floor to adopt that resolution based on the 6-1 vote. So I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing issuance of an order of reorganization. So moved. We'll let Mary have it. Troy, would you like the second? Okay. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Mr. Pankratz? Yes. Ms. Bijak? Yes. Ms. Garrison? Yes. Mr. Mehring? Yes. Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. So all reorganizations are effective on July 1. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn from this public hearing to go into the next public hearing. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Moving on to the next. All right. I am now, as chair of this public hearing on reorganization pursuant to Wisconsin statutes, Section 117.12, I hereby call this meeting to order. I am Krista Flanagan, President of the Oregon School Board, and let the record indicate that the board agenda, which sets forth the date of this hearing, also contained my role as chair tonight. We have before the board a petition to detach from the Oregon School District to the McFarland School District. Next item on the agenda of the public hearing is to appoint the secretary, and I recommend that Ms. Heights serves as secretary for this hearing. So I will entertain a motion to that effect. Is there a second? Katie, can you please call the roll?
Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Ms. Garrison? Yes. Ms. Bijak? Yes. Mr. Mehring? Yes. Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Pankratz? Yes. Mr. Pankratz, I apologize. Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Again, because this is a new hearing, next on the agenda is the introduction of Board of Education members present. This time we'll start with you, Mary.
Pankratz. Tim LeBrun.
All right, unless there is an objection from the floor, the notice of hearing will not be read by the clerk. Is there any objection? All right, hearing none, I will move to the statutory criteria, and because this is a new hearing, I will read them again. The statutory basis for making a decision. The school board shall consider and weigh the following factors as they affect the educational welfare of all the children of the school district affected by the proposed detachment pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 117.15 and may consider other appropriate factors. A, the geographical and why can't I not say that word? Topographical characteristics of the affected school district, including the estimated travel time to and from school for pupils in the school districts. B, the educational needs of all children residing in the affected school districts, the educational programs currently offered by each affected school district, and the ability and commitment of each school district to meet those needs and continue to offer these educational programs. C, if the territory is proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to the adjoining school district, whether the proposed detachment will have any adverse effect on the programs currently offered by the school district from which the territory is proposed to be detached, including both curricular and extracurricular aspects of that program. D, the testimony of the written statements filed by the residents of the affected school districts. E, the estimated fiscal effect of the proposed reorganization of the affected school districts, including the effect of the apportionment of assets and liabilities. F, whether the proposed reorganization will make any part of the school district's territory non-contiguous. G, the socioeconomic level and racial composition of the pupils who reside or will reside in territory proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to an adjoining school district, in territory proposed to be included in a new school district under Statute 117.105, or in school districts proposed to be consolidated, or in a school district proposed to be dissolved. The proportion of pupils who reside in such territory who are children at risk, as defined under Statute 118.151A, and the effect of the pupils described in this paragraph will have on the present and future socioeconomic level and racial composition of the affected school districts and on the proportion of the affected school district's enrollment that will be children at risk. Next is an overview of the petition, so I will now turn it over again to Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. I want to make sure that people who are here to speak about this have a copy of the purple. Is everybody good? Okay, that's great. I want to make sure you have all the information necessary for this. So I'll walk you through what's in there, and then I will go through the criteria and our assessment of the criteria prior to people either speaking for or against the petition. So in the petition, or in the purple, you will see that we have the supporting data, and then we have a bit about the process, as well as the summary and recommendation. And I will be able to go through this a little more as I work our way through this packet. And then once again, we have the chairperson's agenda that should help everybody understand what's happening in the hearing and what's coming up next. Finally, we have an attachment to the agenda that we put together related to the history of this particular request. Because there is a history to this request. This is, I think, the third time we have had this discussion as a school board. And you can see through this how this has played out over the course of time, and that we are currently in an intergovernmental agreement with the school district of McFarland that would allow the people, the children, the families living in Burmeister Woods to go to either school district. And to go to McFarland, they wouldn't have to fill out an open enrollment process. So we can talk, or people can ask questions a little bit about that intergovernmental agreement later. The next thing in the packet is the letter that came from the two superintendents who were involved in designing the intergovernmental agreement. And that was sent to the residents of Burmeister Woods in May of 2012. And you see that was Scott Brown, superintendent of McFarland, and Brian Bussler, superintendent of Oregon. The next piece is that you will see the actual agreement itself. And that is a few pages long. The outcome really of that is that people who live there can choose where they want to go. And I know that means different things to different people, and they will definitely have an opportunity to talk about that. And then you have an exhibit that is the plat of Burmeister Woods. You see all the different lots that are a part of it. The next piece of the packet is the letter that the Oregon School District sent to people who live in Burmeister Woods to make sure they knew that this hearing was taking place. And then we also had a series of questions to make sure the people there had all of the information that was necessary for them prior to this hearing. And then finally we moved to the petition itself, and that is put up today by Brian and Rochelle Weaver, and they have quite a few signatures. Of the 53 properties that are within Burmeister Woods, 38 of those properties signed the petition to join the McFarland School District. And that's approximately 71.7% of the people there. So you can move past some of the signatures there. That takes up several of the pages. To get into the map, and you can see where how the 53 properties are laid out. And you can also see how they are connected to the Oregon School District, and also right around the area that is a part of McFarland. You also have a view that is taken probably from Google Maps, but I can't be sure, that shows where the neighborhood is in relation to other things that are well known that you may be familiar with. So you can place it, even if you aren't someone who drives in that area frequently. And then we move through the part of the information that comes from DPI and the related state statute regarding the process. So that's that piece, but in this time I'd like to go through the criteria at this point in the hearing prior to people speaking about it. So we'll just move our way through, and I'll refer to Mr. Weiland when necessary. So the first criteria related to detaching, a petition to detach from the Oregon School District, is related to geographical and topographical characteristics of both school districts and the estimated travel time. And according to Google Maps, the travel time between the neighborhood and the Oregon School District is slightly longer than their travel time to McFarland, with a variance of 3 to 8 minutes based on the grade level. And the next is the educational needs of all of the children residing. And I would say that as far as opportunities, the McFarland School District and the Oregon School District have very similar programming. We are a little bit larger, so there may be some things that we're able to offer, but it's very similar. I think the impact to programming is really related to the fact that right now people who live there can choose to go to either school district. And if we did not vote to keep this, then that intergovernmental agreement would need to be revisited. And then the next criteria, if the territory proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to another, and whether or not that has an adverse effect on the programming currently offered by the school district. Well, there certainly would be a loss of revenue related to losing residents, and that goes into the next piece of criteria too. And the subdivision may have an adverse effect on that itself may have an adverse effect on offerings. The next piece is the testimony of the people who are impacted, and tonight I believe we will hear from both, from people who are proponents and have supported this petition, and also from a family that hoped to be able to send their child to the Oregon School District, an incoming kindergartner. Next, is there an estimated fiscal impact of this proposed reorganization? And there is a fiscal impact, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Weiland about that.
You bet. First of all, this is a significant amount of assessed value. So we're talking about $16.7 million in total with all these properties. So that does represent just over 0.5% of our total equalized assessed value for the school district. So that is significant, much more so than the prior petition. The other component of it is just because of the situation, the agreement that we have in place, there are anticipated to be 19 students that continue to go to McFarland next year if the petition is not approved. And there is a differential between, as Troy said before, what we receive from a resident student as compared to what we receive as an open enrolled student. And so that would approximately be about a $70,000 revenue reduction that we would have next year that we would have to work through. And that's exceedingly difficult in the current state budget environment where we're not receiving any additional funding, neither this year or next year from the state of Wisconsin. So those are the two impacts. The $16.7 million, the equalized assessed value, also has an impact. It specifically talks about liabilities and those types of things within the criteria. And so one of the things you have to think about is, you know, the district issues debt and those types of things for construction projects like Forest Edge Elementary. And basically we're kind of shifting those debt from people that were property owners to the existing property owners or the remaining property owners that would be there. So not huge amounts, but again, 0.5% of assessed value kind of coming off the rolls and then moving that debt service connected to that onto the other property owners is something to at least consider.
The next criteria is related to whether or not any property or any area would be non-contiguous. And there's actually, it's kind of strange if you look at it in Google Maps, there's a small park that's in Burmeister Woods that would stay a part of Oregon, even though properties around it, according to the petition, could potentially move to McFarland. So it's an odd little thing. There's no one who lives at the park, so it doesn't impact any student going to school or anything of that nature. But it's just a small territory that wouldn't be included. Finally, the socioeconomic level and racial composition of the pupils who reside, will this have any impact on either school district? It will not. And there is no impact on any result of a referendum because that's related to the dissolution of a school district. So the current agreement between the two school districts, we believe, allows the residents to have the best of both worlds. They could attend either school district, and it is no extra paperwork or problem for them to do one or the other. And the two districts have worked really well together. There has never been any concern related to anything regarding payment, transportation, or anything of that nature. So we would hate to take away the ability of anyone in that neighborhood who bought a house thinking it was the Oregon School District. We'd hate to take that away from them. Consequently, that is why the administrative team does not support the granting of this particular petition.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. So again, before taking testimony, I would like to review the rules applicable to this hearing. This is an informal hearing, but we will record all of the information presented. Each person offering information will come to the microphone. Please state your name, your address, and school district, and speak distinctly so that we can be sure your information is recorded. The procedure is to hear from the proponents and the opponents of the petition. The proponents, those people asking the school board to transfer the territory, will be heard first. Following the proponents, the opponents of the petition, those people who do not want the territory transferred, will be heard. And then following the initial presentation by the proponents and the opponents, there will be short time allotted for rebuttal and or summation by both sides in the same order as before. So I do have a list of those who have registered to speak. So I will read the names and let me know. You will need to be a proponent first. So if you are opposing this, we'll wait till all the proponents have finished. So first is Brian Weaver. Are you an opponent? Okay. Proponent. Go ahead. Once you get the red. By the.
Right here.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you for allowing me to address the Oregon School Board tonight. My name is Brian Weaver. I live at 2511 Thatcher Lane, McFarland, Wisconsin, which resides in the Oregon School District and Burmeister Woods neighborhood. This has been my home for my wife and my 3 children for over 21 years. Many of my neighbors, some of them are here tonight, have formed strong bonds, and one common element that brings us together is our connection to the community of McFarland. Not only is the school district of our children, but is the place we have formed lasting friendships and strong connections to community businesses, schools, and the people who make up the community. I know many of the teachers, principals, and school board members by name. We are fortunate to have a strong public education systems in Dane County, and I feel blessed that my 3 children have received a great education in the McFarland School District. Yet, I am not allowed to participate in the governance of the school district because I can't vote on referendums, or school board members or run for district office. Burmester Woods has spoken. Over the last 10 years, there has not been one newly enrolled student from the neighborhood in the Oregon School District. All parents who have chosen to give their child a public education have enrolled their child in McFarland School District. At last count, that was 26 children in the last 10 years. Our proximity to the McFarland community makes this a clear and obvious choice. I can imagine this was the logic when it was determined how to best serve the Burmester Woods neighborhood with services like fire, EMS, and mail, which all come from McFarland. I don't hold any negative views of the Oregon School District or the community. Our neighborhood is petitioning to be redistricted to the McFarland School District because that is the community that is serving our children. My wife and I want to be fully participate in the McFarland community, the one that has served our family so well. We want the board members here to demonstrate what we want for us as well. You guys are demonstrating what we want for ourselves, which is to participate and guide the future of public education in McFarland. So I see from the agenda packet, the school district administrator is recommending to deny our request. And so I do want to touch on some of those factors that were brought up as well. And so the maps are helpful. The contiguous, there would be no non-contiguous. This is a park. There aren't any homes there. In fact, if you look at it, this neighborhood here is actually closer to the Oregon School District, but it's in McFarland School District. Across the street here is a board member from the school board. He knows the history of why this neighborhood was selected to be in the Oregon School District. It's a relatively new subdivision, 20 plus years old, 30 years old. And so at the time when they were developing this, they gave the property owner, the farmer, the choice. And he had a child that went to Oregon School District, and that was his choice. So actually what's non-contiguous is what's happening right now in this neighborhood. Because if you actually go to the Google map, the blue map, and I wish you would have put a scale on this, because it would drastically show the difference between this neighborhood here, where we're at Burmester Woods, in the McFarland community, and Oregon, which is not even on the map, in this particular Google map. We are that much closer to the McFarland School District and the McFarland community. Also, there's a road here, Keenan Road, which many of you probably didn't know this neighborhood existed. The only way you know it's here, it's kind of a cut through. A lot of people take that to get to east side of Madison to McFarland, or from McFarland to the west side of Madison. And it's actually, at one time, when we were at the appeal committee back in DPI, they called it a balloon on a string. So essentially they had this Keenan Road, went all the way up a mile, and then grabbed our neighborhood, and that's where it stopped. And everything around us is McFarland School District. So I see it as unjust as far as how this neighborhood continues to be in the Oregon School District when the neighborhood has made a decision to send its children to McFarland School District. And I get the fiscal impact. I mean, that's your responsibility as a school board. But, I don't run a school board or a school district or participate in the finances, but 0.5% seems pretty small. If you guys are here for the children that you mentioned several times tonight, think about the families who've made that decision to send their children to the McFarland School District, and have our ability to fully participate in that district would be great. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Rochelle Weaver.
Thank you. My name is Rochelle Weaver. I live at 2511 Thatcher Lane in McFarland. Again, my kids go to the McFarland district, but we reside in the Oregon School District. We have 3 children. Our oldest is 20. She graduated from McFarland 2 years ago and is going to UW-Eau Claire. We have a senior right now at McFarland who will be graduating and most likely going to UW-Madison. And then we have a sophomore who's currently at McFarland. This whole process is kind of near and dear to me because 12 years ago in 2010, we started this petition. When you talk about the 3 times, our name has been associated with that. I will tell you, petition number 1 in 2010 was definitely a learning curve. This is not something you do on a daily basis, so you learn things. So we learned from that one. We petitioned in 2010 with just 11 families, basically 11 people that 11 of the neighbors wanted to petition. So we put forward with the petition took it to McFarland, they accepted, brought it forward to Oregon, was denied, and then we proceeded to the appeals process. Actually had a really good interaction with the appeals board, but at that point, obviously, we caused kind of a cookie board approach, and that wasn't going to work. So we took their advice, and they said, you know, if you can go back and get 50% of the homes in 2 years, come back. So in 2012, that's what we did. This time we went through the whole neighborhood asking if people wanted to join the petition. We were able to accomplish and get over the 50%. Again, took it to the McFarland School Board. It was approved, brought it to the Oregon School Board. It was denied, set forward to appeal it again. But at that point, we had the two superintendents who graciously worked very hard to put that agreement together, which we are very appreciative. One of the struggles, and it was hard back in 12 because there were people on both sides of the aisle, and at that time we had children going to Oregon, and I completely as a parent get how disruptive that could be when you have somebody coming in potentially saying my kid's going to have to leave the school district. So completely appreciative of what the two superintendents were able to do with this 10-year agreement. Brings us to now, 2020, the 10-year agreement. It brought us to the point where, okay, at this point, where are we at now? So 10 years went by. During that time, we've been there the whole time. We've seen homes sell, families come in, and a lot of families, you know, asking about the school districts and all that. And, you know, again, not knowing or having the history, was able to share with them how this current agreement got put in place. So with this being the 10-year, we went around, and there was definitely more interest for petitioning. So we are on petition number 3. So as it was kind of mentioned, so our petition, there are 53 home sites in this neighborhood. We have 38 that have signed this petition. Of that, I think it's very important to know that we have 26 children in our neighborhood that currently go to the McFarland School District. We have 1 child that goes to the Oregon School District, and he will be graduating this June. So as of June, there will be no children currently in Burmeister Woods that are going to be going to Oregon. They will all be going to McFarland. We also have children that we have a family that homeschools children. They have signed on to this agreement. We have a family that does private education. They have also signed on to this agreement. We have 3 homes that have we have 3 homes that have school-age children, and 2 of those 3 homes have signed on for this petition. So I think it's very clear there is a strong desire in our neighborhood to look at redistricting to get into the McFarland School District. On a personal note, as you know with my children, they are on the older spectrum of it. I think probably the hardest part for me going through the last how many years with my daughter and now still having children left is having no voice when it comes to like the referendums, being able to vote for the school district. That's a huge, huge problem with this agreement. I agree the agreement is very helpful and it allows a lot of flexibility, but at some point, I think you need to make things a little bit easier to understand. I will also tell you in the neighborhood confusion where families didn't even, when I would go door to door with the petition, some didn't even know, they're like, I don't even know what school district we're in right now. Is that agreement even still happening? So there's not a clear understanding, which is also, in my eyes, problematic. I will also tell you when homes go up for sale, the realtors don't know what school districts to put. They'll put Oregon, and then you have to tell them, actually, there's an agreement. And they're like, really? How do I know that? So then they have to seek out to the school districts to figure that out. So I think those were, I think we're at a point right now where we've had 10 years to allow things to shake out and let the neighborhood speak where they would like the children to go. We are at that point, again, to reiterate, we have 26 children right now currently being educated by the McFarland School District, and we have 1 from Oregon that will be graduating. So now is a perfect time to make this a solid understanding so people have a clear idea of where their children are going and where they can be, their voices can be heard. Thank you.
thank you, Rochelle. Melinda Thompson is next.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am one of the original petitioning bodies as well. My name's Melinda Thompson. I live at 2506 Thatcher Lane, McFarland. And while my children go to the McFarland School District through this agreement, my property is in the Oregon School District. So just to reiterate on some of the topics that the Weavers have both spoke on, I fully support all of their comments and just wanted to add a couple of extra things. So in 2010, right before our first petition, my child was denied open enrollment to the McFarland School District. So when we looked into what that meant with our planning to get him into McFarland, the busing for him would have been almost an hour as a 5-year-old. So unfortunately, from where our property is and how close we are to McFarland, which is the community we relate to, we opted to send him to a private school that we could get him to that was more convenient than that 2-hour bus ride a day. So my children have not attended Oregon School District at all. I have 2 high schoolers, a freshman and a sophomore, and they are connected to the McFarland School District. And let's see, go through the rest of my notes, sorry. And one of the things that we found as we have gone through this petitioning is that we get a lot of connection from the McFarland School District. We get mailings, we get announcements, and that was one of the things that was brought up in our DPI appeal process, is that there was no communication from the Oregon School District. It's almost as though we're not recognized. So having that, I can tell you we still have not, since then, have I gotten anything from the Oregon School District of anything coming up, anything going on, anybody running for a school board, any big ticket items, any of the referendums. We don't get any of that information. So really we have a disconnect from the school district, but we have that with our McFarland family. So that was one of the things I wanted to make sure that was addressed, is just having that connection to the district. And I have no ill thoughts or anything against the district, it's just I have no connection. And again, to reiterate, the big piece within this, we have this great 10-year agreement, and that would almost get my children that first 10 year through high school. Didn't quite make it. I didn't know until we started this process, this go around, that it was going to, it could auto-renew. That was not known at the time. We knew that there could be a discussion and that at any point the contract could not be renewed. I found out actually when the letter came out to us that it was approved for another 10 years. Again, we had no communication about that, and that was an opportunity for us to have. Having the ability to vote in the district where our children attend school and be connected again to that process to help their is part of the reason that the redistricting for us is important at this time. It has the least impact to the students who are going to the Oregon School District during that time where we were able to choose. And several of the families that lived in Burmester Woods have moved out of our neighborhood to be closer to the schools. So I think it's been a big impact for us as far as making the choice and having our ability to go to the McFarland School District. And clearly with the 26 students who have chosen that option, that is where we really want to be. I think that's covers everything else that I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Susan Briggs.
Push a button. It's already on. Hi, my name is Susan Briggs. I live at 2505 Thatcher Lane, McFarland, Wisconsin. I'm just here to say so many people ahead of me have spoken so eloquently about what we want and what we need in our little Burmeister Woods, and I'm just here to say that I support the petition.
Okay, thank you. Tom, is it Finnessy?
Hello, Tom Finnessy, 2505 Thatcher Lane, Oregon School District. Similar to my wife, I'm here in support of the referendum, the petition in front of you. I don't have any further things to add.
Okay, are there any other proponents of the petition? If you could state your name, address. and
Linda Lohr, and I live at 2444 Burl Court in McFarland in the Burmeister Woods neighborhood, Oregon School District. I do have 3 sons. One of them is still in school. The other ones have graduated from McFarland High School or from McFarland District. I just want to reiterate everything that the prior speakers noted about the fact that we get no literature at all from Oregon. We get no communication whatsoever. Our address is McFarland. All of the information we get is from McFarland. Obviously, the agreement was great, but once again, no communication with that as well. The fact that it was renewed, we did not hear about. Just no information. So I myself was unsure if it was still renewed. I kind of just went across the assumption that it was, even though nothing was sent to us. It's also nice in our area because my kids can access McFarland. If they wish to ride their bike into town, there are side roads and back roads that they can take. There's no way they would ever be able to do that to get into Oregon. You know, we just definitely feel like we are a part of McFarland. We have connections with the church, the groceries, you know, the community. The distance and that we are there is so much more of that community than Oregon. We have nothing against Oregon whatsoever. It just doesn't make sense for where we are located. So hoping to change this so that we can vote on these referendums, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to opponents of the petition. Kayla Jones.
Hi, my name is Kayla Jones. I currently live at 2460 Thatcher Lane, but my husband and I are the owners of the vacant lot that is listed in this petition as well. My husband grew up in this neighborhood with his 2 siblings, all graduating from the Oregon School District. Before we got married, we had been discussing where we wanted to end up raising our children and knew we wanted to move back to the Madison area and live within the Oregon School District. We viewed many homes and lots within the district over several years. In 2018, my husband and I had the opportunity to purchase the last undeveloped lot in the neighborhood and have been looking forward to building a home for our family. We decided to purchase this lot because not only would it put us next to family, but within the Oregon School District. We have been working closely with a builder and are hoping to break ground later this year. We were shocked to hear that people within the neighborhood were trying to completely switch the school district from the choice between the two to just McFarland. The petition was reviewed by the McFarland School District on February 7th during a board meeting. The neighborhood was not informed of this, and during the meeting, it was asked if anyone had anything to add to oppose to this petition, and no one said anything. I did hear from some neighbors that people that signed the petition were informed. I called and talked to Dr. Anderson, the superintendent of the McFarland School District, and asked him why Burmeister Woods neighborhood was not notified of this specific board meeting. He told me that since the properties in the petition are technically Oregon School District, they don't need to notify the residents. He said that the meeting was posted on the district website and that was all the notification they needed to provide the community. During the school board meeting, Rochelle stated there's only 1 student currently in Oregon School District. This is wrong. There is one that is a senior, but there is also one in 3K. She also said this coming fall there will be no students. This fall, the 3K student will be in 4K, and my daughter will be in kindergarten. Rochelle also made the comment during the meeting that there are 3 families with small children in the neighborhood, and 2 of them signed the petition. This is also untrue, because there are actually 4. My husband and I were not included in this. The problem with this is that nowhere in her speech did they mention what is best for all the children in the neighborhood. What they're trying to do is selfish. They're taking away opportunities from the families that have non-school-age children and from families that would eventually move into this neighborhood. They stated that they feel like it is unfair to have their children in a school district that they are not able to vote for or hold a school board position. I understand this is a legitimate frustration, but as a homeowner, this is something you should actually be sure to know and understand when you purchase a home. Nothing about what this petition is doing is with the students and children in mind. It is what they want to fulfill their own agenda. Changing our neighborhood from its current agreement will only hurt the children. Please deny this petition and allow it to stay as is.
Thank you, Kayla. Jeannie Jones.
Thank you for listening to us. My name is Jeannie Jones, and we live in Burmeister Woods subdivision. We purchased a lot in the 80s and built a home. We purchased this lot solely because it was Oregon School District, and we wanted our children to attend Oregon schools. It was then and now is an excellent school district that has much to offer our children. We have 3 children which all have gone through Oregon schools, graduating in 2005, 2009, and 2014. We went through this process in 2012 when our daughter was in high school, and it was so stressful. It was just horrible. We were blindsided with the petition. It was just a bad thing. In 2012, we didn't even know that there was a petition, as the petitioners chose to avoid houses. So when she states that she went around to all the houses, they did not. They only went to the houses they knew that they could get to sign the petition. They were not truthful to the neighbors in 2012 with their petition. Back in 2012, we even had neighbors come to the Oregon school hearing and told the board that they were misled in signing the petition and asked to be removed. So some of the neighbors, they told them things that weren't true back then. I feel they're doing this again in 2022. I have spoken to a few neighbors on what they told, and this was their exact statement to me. I wish I would have spoken to you before I signed the petition, as they didn't know how this would affect others in the neighborhood. They said they believed what they were told and signed it based on the information they were provided. It's very unfortunate that the information provided to the neighbors again was misleading. People signed this petition with false information. They told them their houses are going to be worth more. Who can tell them that? In fact, we shouldn't even be here discussing this. We have a petition to change the school district. In fact, we shouldn't even be here discussing this because we have a petition to change the school district as an agreement for Burmeister Woods was renewed by both the school districts this past January. So why are we even here? It benefits all the children right now the way it is. I know for a fact that there are children, families with children in the neighborhood that have their children enrolled in Oregon schools and will be attending in the fall, which was falsified by the petitioners to our neighbors and to the McFarland School Board. We were not made aware of the McFarland School Board meeting that Rochelle presented her petition at. This was unfortunate, as when the board asked if anyone opposed and waited for a response, we didn't even have the opportunity to respond. I am pleased to see that Oregon School District mailed a notice out about this meeting and provided information for all the residents of Burmeister Woods. I do receive information from the Oregon school system. We have over the years. We've been through this whole school district. I don't think anybody's sending much out anymore. Everything is pretty much on the website. So when she says she doesn't get any information, I'm not getting anything from McFarland either. So I'm not sure where she's getting her information. The agreement that is in place benefits all the children in the neighborhood. There shouldn't be any reason that this is even taking place other than the fact that Rochelle Weaver stated at the McFarland School Board meeting is that she just wants to see this through. When Rochelle stated at the McFarland Board meeting, we are here for the children, I don't believe her. If we want to be here for our children, all the children in the neighborhood, it would be to keep the current agreement in place. The fact is that the superintendents of Oregon and McFarland came up with an acceptable agreement in 2012 for Burmeister Woods that benefited the education for all the children and families in the neighborhood. As Rochelle stated at the McFarland Board meeting, everyone was satisfied, and we moved forward. Everyone was satisfied. Now why do they want to change it? For their own purpose. We have a wonderful neighborhood in Burmeister Woods that we live in. We built a home here because it was Oregon School District. This neighborhood now has a unique situation that allows all our children to go to either Oregon or McFarland schools. Please deny this petition to change Burmeister Woods from Oregon School District to McFarland School District. We have an acceptable agreement in place that was renewed in January of 2022 by both school districts. This agreement benefits the education for all the children and families in Burmeister Woods, not just certain families. You know, when he talks about the map, you know, we're not a pocket. It may show a pocket, but Jordan Drive is right over here. They're Oregon School District. All down Keenan Road is school district. Highway off of Mahoney is Oregon School District. Over Hawkinson Road, B is Oregon School District. We're not just this little pocket. Jordan Drive's over here. So we have school district all the way around this little area here. So it's kind of untrue to say that. And I just decided to take a road trip today, and I drove from my home to the new school. And then I drove back. And then I drove from my home to the elementary school. 1 minute and 32 seconds was the difference in time. One way, and then the other one was 1 minute and 37 seconds. I don't think a minute and a half is that big of a deal. So I did the high school too, and that was a little longer because of the change in speed limit when it was my kids went to school. So that was probably a little closer to 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. I don't think that a minute and a half is that big of a deal. We've never had a problem driving to Oregon. Our kids love the school. My family, I have a son my other son is looking at purchasing our home. He wants his kids to go to Oregon school. The fact of the matter is every one of those people that live in that development knew that it was Oregon schools. When you purchase a home, you know what it is. If you want to be on the school board, if you want to have these opportunities to vote, then you should have purchased a home in McFarland School District. Now, the reason why the families have increased over the last few years is because we have this unique situation. We're Oregon and McFarland. So realtors love it. They can promote our property as you can go to either our school. So what a wonderful opportunity to keep our neighborhood as it is. It benefits all the children, not just Rochelle wanting to be on the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nicholas Jones.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Jones, 2460 Thatcher Lane, Oregon School District. As you guys just both heard from my wife and mother, we are for staying, with the current situation. I actually went, I went to high school, middle school. I went everything to Oregon. I rode my bike from our house to football practice. If I could do it, it's same thing goes. It's done there. We've done that. Now the roads are a little bit more busy, so I totally understand you wouldn't want to ride your bike. But the same thing goes for going to McFarland. You don't want to ride your bike on 51, do you? I wouldn't either. I've been going. We've been in this for 30. I've been going to Oregon schools. I'm 35 years old, so I totally understand and support keeping the current agreement in place. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is opportunity for rebuttals. So we will have anybody that's a proponent of this agreement who wants to speak again, they can come to the microphone.
Hi, Brian Weaver, 2511 Thatcher Lane, McFarland, Wisconsin, Oregon School District. And just for the rebuttal, just a correction, unfortunately turned into a personal attack of my wife, unfortunate. So this is not Rochelle's petition. There was over 70% of the homes that signed on to this petition to redistrict to McFarland School District. Thank you.
All right, opponents of this petition would like to do a rebuttal.
The fact of the matter is that they falsified their information to our neighbors. People signed this petition. I don't know how many, but several of them signed it. It happened last time too. We had people that came to the board and said, they told me the wrong information. I signed it because of this. I had a neighbor say to me, I wish I would have talked to you first. What they told me was untrue. Their little handout that they gave out has false information on it. So I'm not attacking Rochelle. I'm just repeating what she said at the board meeting. So people have signed this petition. I don't think it's that many people. Yes, and there are more children in the neighborhood right now that are McFarland But again, it's because it's a dual schools district. When you buy a house, you should know what school district it is. And you should know what your rights of being what school district it is, if you want to be on the board or if you want to have the voting rights. And if that's something you really, truly wanted, then you shouldn't have bought a house in an Oregon school district. Yes, we have this great opportunity to be a dual, school district, which benefits all the children. Why do they want to take away my granddaughter, my grandson, opportunity to go to Oregon schools? I bought a home that was Oregon school district. They bought a lot. They have invested a lot of money in this lot and the plans of building a home based on it being Oregon school district.
All right, any other speakers? Okay, at this time I will close the public presentation on this position and open the school board deliberations. The only information presented hereafter will be on the request of the school board members concerning the information received by them or brought out in this meeting. Are there any questions or information that any board member would like answered or clarified? And you may state your thoughts on the petition at this time if you'd like to do so. Kevin.
Oh, we're good now. Thanks, Gina. Just so I'm 100% clear, so the 26 children, if that had the number right, but a significant, definitely a majority of the children that are in the subdivision that are going to the McFarland School District, they're getting choice dollars because they're residents of Oregon. They're not getting a full, is that an accurate statement or not?
They're not getting anything. It's simply a payment, a state aid payment that happens at the end of the year that the state manages, and then basically pays McFarland. Or actually, in this situation, I apologize. In this situation, it's a tuition agreement, so it isn't an open enrollment situation.
Okay.
It's actually the Oregon School District paying McFarland directly.
The full amount, not a choice
The full, the open enrollment amount.
Open enrollment.
So it's not going through the open enrollment process, but we use that amount in the agreement.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Mary, go ahead.
So on the pink map, there was this land here that is going to be retained as Oregon School District? Okay.
That's the small park I referred to.
Okay. No, thank you.
Andy, I do have one question. Has there ever been a conversation with the McFarland School District of paying us $70,000 that we would lose in tax benefit?
No, we've never had that conversation.
So that would be a loss in $70,000 of revenue for.
Yeah, yes. That's the amount related to what we would get as a resident compared to the open enrollment.
Okay, just clarifying that. Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
So not sure if Leslie wants to address this question, but we were talking about that this is all about the kids in the last petition, and now the shoe's on the other foot in this petition. And this agreement's great. It gives flexibility to people in the neighborhood, but from my perspective, at some point it feels like it's kicking the can down the road a little bit. I guess I'd like to hear from Leslie on what you feel are the positives and negatives for the kids, whether it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 8 minutes. I mean, that doesn't necessarily translate to a 3 or 8 minute bus ride. So there's a lot of different aspects to consider here. I think the services you've said, are similar. Both great school districts, so we know that's the common denominator here. But are there other things to consider if we're truly going to take the kids into consideration?
As you mentioned, they're both great school districts, and I think they can both offer amazing opportunities for young people. So there is absolutely nothing to lead someone to think that if they would have something less than if they went to one school district or the other. Right now, with the way this intergovernmental agreement is working, the families get to choose between two high-quality districts, and I think that benefits everyone.
Go ahead, Heather.
I have a question that may be above and beyond this discussion, but it sounds to me from what I'm hearing that the kids having a choice of both schools is a good thing for the kids. So that takes care of is it right for the kids in my mind. I do understand wanting to be able to maybe run for school board or to vote on a referendum. Is there something that McFarland and Oregon can look at to add that to an agreement, or is that above and beyond in some state law that we have no Can't
I
touch
think
it.
that's related to a statutory requirement.
Just thought I would ask because that would seem to solve some things. I'm sure that's been discussed in the 2 other times before I'm on the board, but I thought it was worth asking.
Go ahead, Troy.
So Andy, just some quick math. 0.5% of our EAV is 190. No.
Should be about $16.7 million. $3 billion, unless I did the math wrong.
Okay, but as an impact to our budget, I'm calculating that to be about 117,000. Does that sound right?
Oh, if you took that percentage times our
I took the
budget.
Yeah, I took the 0.5% times our state revenue from property tax.
Hard to make that calculation that way just because of the way school finance works.
Just looking for some rough numbers here.
Yeah, it's a smaller portion of our budget. The impact, the amount of money that we have to spend, though, is that's based on 19 students, which is what we estimated would be remaining next school year. We anticipated it would be about a $70,000 impact.
Okay.
The assessed value really has more to do with how property taxes are assessed. And people get confused thinking that that actually means revenue to school districts. But because of the state aid formula, it doesn't mean that. It just means where the money comes from.
So your 70,000 number includes both the difference in open enrollment and the EAV 0.5% difference?
The EAV is really a different component to things. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it to you, but basically equalized assessed value just determines where the money comes from, whether it comes from the state of Wisconsin or if it comes from property taxpayers. So more property taxpayer amount, more property taxes we get, the less state aid we get. So the impact is not really related to EAV, it just determines how you slice the pie up.
So I guess my point, it may be irrelevant of the exact number, but it's a teacher or more than a teacher that we are going to cut in our budget that we have no way to make up, right? And we're looking at some pretty dire projections for next year as to our funding, and that's concerning to me if we don't have a method to make up that kind of dollar figure. Couple other things, that non-contiguous park parcel is a bit concerning to me. It really doesn't meet the requirements of the state requirements that we need to achieve when we're going through this. The Jordan Drive properties were mentioned as being kind of an island out there too, and I think that's a really good point when you look at the map, that there are properties just to the north of that McFarland area that are also Oregon School District homes. And I mean, I agree it's all about the kids, but to me, dual school district benefits all, both great school districts. As I sit here as an Oregon School Board member, I think we're a little bit better. And I can't, I mean, all of these factors, I guess I just can't get past that to support this this change.
Go ahead, Tim.
I would have to agree with Troy. I think it really comes down, I boil it down to 2 issues. What's best for the kids, and having access to 2 great school districts is a huge benefit. A benefit, I don't know of any other neighborhood that enjoys that benefit at all, whether it's in Dane County or in Wisconsin. It's a great benefit, and it's a great benefit from a homeowner's perspective as well. It adds value, period. And so from the kids' perspective, it's a great benefit to have access to 2 great school districts. The other issue is the economic issue. We are facing some very challenging funding. And as a school board member, I could not imagine voting in favor of giving up $70,000 or $7,000 at this point. I know that doesn't help things. I know that we've been kicking this can down the road for 12 years. But in my opinion, those are the 2 measurements. There's an economic measurement, and there's what's the value to the kids. And on both cases, I would be in support of denying the transfer.
Kevin? Okay, go ahead.
Just so I'm aware or up to speed on this, because there's this agreement in place, this obviously, depending on the decision we make, this is not going to go to some arbitrator because we have the agreement, right? It's not like the last scenario, correct?
No, it would go to the Property Appeal Board if there's
It would, even though we have the agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
If there's an appeal.
Yeah, it assumes the proponents would.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, any other questions, clarifications, statements? Okay, I now turn it over to Dr. Bergstrom to review the two options before us.
The option is really about granting the request for the transfer of the territory described in the petition, and this means that the territory would be detached from the Oregon School District and attached to the McFarland School District. Or the school board could vote to deny the request to transfer the territory described in the petition, and this means the territory would remain in the Oregon School District.
All right, thank you. So suggested motions. Motion 1 could be to grant the transfer of the territory described in the petition, that the reorganization requested in the petition that's been filed be granted, and an order entered detaching the territory described in said petition from the Oregon School District and attaching said territory to the McFarland School District. Or to deny the transfer of territory described in the petition, that the reorganization requested in the petition that's been filed, detaching territory in said petition from the Oregon School District and attaching said territory to the McFarland School District be denied, and that said petition be dismissed. So I'll entertain a motion, and please be specific because this gets a little confusing.
I will make the motion to deny the transfer of territory described in the petition, that the reorganization requested in the petition, detaching territory in said petition from the Oregon School District and attaching said territory to the McFarland School District be denied, and that said petition be dismissed.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second, so I will now ask Ms. Heitz to hand out the ballots. Ms. Jonan, will you clarify what a yes and a no vote mean? Because this is a motion to deny. Sorry. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Ms. Bijak? Yes. Ms. Garrison? Mr. Mehring? Mr. LeBrun? Yes. Mr. Pankratz? Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. That petition is denied, and all reorganizations are effective on July 1st. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn this public hearing. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is adjourned at 8:23. Okay, thank you everyone for coming this evening for that section of the agenda. All right, now we are back to action item C, which is health and safety measures, policy 565 and 566. I will turn it over to Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. So we'll start off our evening with this particular action item with our goal, right? Our goal has been safe in-person learning, this has been our goal all year long, and keep students in school with minimal disruption. And now that we know that the mask mandate is ending, I think it's important to re-examine our strategies as the landscape continues to change. For example, we know that just a few weeks ago, we had so many cases within the school district that we were having a hard time ensuring there was an adult in every classroom. However, in the last, we just need to, there we go. We just need, at this point, we can see that the numbers are declining significantly. Please note that the 359 is a 14-day average, and because the case counts have come down so much in a short period of time, it takes a little longer for a 14-day average to be influenced. Consequently, we're still in the very high area, but the number of new cases in Dane County was below 100, or right around 100 recently. So Katie's has a little bit of a faulty computer happening here. So if we lose it, I'll keep talking and we'll just, it's popping in and out. Oh, excellent. Okay, good. Then I'm not worried. So you can see the trend is exactly what we want it to be, right? The trend is going downward. And because of that, we're seeing it reflected within our own numbers here in the school district. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to go back. 9 cases district-wide, and I remember, I think we were at a high of 76 on January 10th. And remember, those were just the cases that were active on Mondays. We had jumps that were in the hundreds related to the number of cases. And now that has really, really calmed down. And I think that's excellent news in every possible way. Now, right now, health guidance continues to recommend layered strategies. We did hear that there might be some updates to health guidance from CDC this week, but we also know that might not come. So I think we may have to make some decisions regardless of that, because we do have some local situations that are a little bit unique, such as our extraordinarily high vaccination rate, and I'll get to that in just a little bit too. We also know the mask mandate from Dane County is expiring on March 1st. So we have some unique local conditions, right? We have a great vaccination rate. We have the expiration of the mask mandate. And we have significantly declining cases. So what are some of the other considerations as we're moving forward? Well, while universal masking continues to be low, as I just mentioned, our numbers are trending down, and our cases, thankfully, are very low. Our vaccination rates are very high, 80% at the high school, 78% at the middle school, and our K-6 group is up to 70%. So that's a pretty big jump from the last time we discussed the vaccination rate of the younger students also. Just because we have to be very realistic about any decisions we make, we have to know that there'll be illness that will be spread if we peel off one layer of our safety strategies. And it may be COVID, it may be flu, we don't know. But there will be more illnesses, and that's just a part of what we can expect. And that increased illnesses, if associated with COVID, will lead to more contact tracing and more quarantines. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And of course, this could also lead to some staffing challenges. I think, as one very astute staff member said recently, we can't go back to January, meaning it was just too on the edge every day. But with our declining case rates, that shouldn't be what is facing us. And then we also have to consider planning in what to do if cases spike or community transmission begins to increase. Or I'd say it's really about school transmission, but we can talk about that later. So here's what the administrative team recommends given our circumstances right now. And we recommend that we move to a mask strongly encouraged environment for indoor settings, because it's already that for outdoors. beginning on March 1st. We know that the CDC order requires continued masking on school transportation. So that's just a way of, we'll have to deal with that moving forward. We know that we will continue to review and work with our local health officials regarding what to do if there is another surge or we see evidence of transmission in schools. And there is no magic number. You know, if we say there's a magic number, it's a made-up one, because the people who work in this area say it's a combination of factors, not just one thing. We'll continue for now with the other layered strategies, but as we move forward, we can talk about which of those we peel back also. And 4K will follow the K-12 plan or maintain their current protocols. The centers would be in charge of communicating that with their families. So, knowing that, if our recommendation is to peel back the layer of masking, what are the other layered strategies we are implementing? Well, for now, we would like to continue with symptom checking and the encouragement of the Panther Pledge. Of course, frequent hand washing and basic hygiene. I think that's become a part of how people are doing everything because it's been so much a part of our life for a while now. We also know that due to our great team, we have really high quality air ventilation and filters in place at our schools, and we know the importance of ventilation in this scenario. Also, thanks to the team and thanks to Fitchburg Pharmacy, we have on-site testing that is actually now a community testing site. So you don't even have to be a member of our staff or a member of one of our families to get tested now by Oregon Pharmacy in the Prairie View Netherwood parking lot. In addition to that, we continue to have our amazing partnership with Orchards. So we're very well covered, I believe, in the area of testing. For our contact tracing and quarantine, here are some things that we recommend we do. And that is that we maintain the 3-foot definition for close contacts as opposed to moving to the 6-foot that is normally used for an unmasked environment. We would maintain contact tracing for staff. We would also contact trace for students, but we would do something that we're referring to as Household Plus, which means we see that the transmission is most likely to happen within the household. So we would do contact tracing for households, which would mean siblings. That would be a big impact, and sometimes it also means teachers or paraprofessionals who are part of the family. And other people that we know they have continued close contact with, as opposed to somebody who may have sat with them in a group in history class, because we simply can't trace to that degree in an unmasked environment. Of course, we'll do quarantines if people are symptomatic, they're close contacts and they have symptoms, or if they have symptoms at all, as part of the Panther Pledge. If they're not symptomatic, but they are identified as a close contact and they're not vaccinated, we'll continue to follow guidance, or if they have no positive case in the last 90 days. Those are all the pieces that have to be considered related to whether or not someone would need to quarantine. And then we would also continue to communicate positive cases in the classrooms to families. So our recommendations basically are to continue with layered strategies and to peel back the masking layer as our first step toward living a little more like we used to before the pandemic. So related to action steps, should the board vote to amend 565 and 566 to reflect our recommendations, we would communicate updates to our staff and our families and our students, because as our students who are here tonight can tell you, this is definitely a topic in the student population too. We'll create lessons for our students to help them, because some of them have been doing this a long time and not going to school with a mask might feel a little funny. And we have to be able to support them in going forward with that if that's what their family chooses to do too. And we'll continue to recruit substitutes because we know we will need them. Just to get by with the normal day-to-day of life, we will absolutely need them. And then we will reevaluate at the April 11th meeting what additional layers we should begin to peel back, given the fact that we expect numbers will continue to decline. And that is our update.
Okay, what I'd like to do first is go around the room and ask clarifying questions, because I also want to give our students a chance to, before we put a motion on the floor, which could be just to follow Leslie's recommendation, or it could be counter to that, because the motion that, or the policy that now is currently in place has the 7th and the 28th, if we recall. So first, I'd like to go around and see if anybody has any clarifying questions before we get into motion and discussion, because again, I'd like our student reps to talk too. So I'll start with you, Mary.
Dr. Bergstrom, could you explain to me again the Household Plus contact tracing? What does that mean?
Thank you for reminding me. How we currently would engage with contact tracing is we would talk directly to the teacher. Is there anyone who sat by the student or for 15 minutes or more where they were unmasked? Well, now everybody's going to be unmasked. And so we don't want to go back to everybody having to stay a certain number of feet apart, because we were operating in our classrooms in a fairly normal manner. And we weren't seeing transmission because, we believe, because of the fact that the students were wearing masks. We don't want to go backwards and all of a sudden and have students go back to their desks and remain 3 to 6 feet apart. We don't want to do that. So what we will continue to do, though, with contact tracing, because our goal is to keep students in school, is we will be contacting family members, siblings, best friends if they just had a sleepover together, that type of thing, and saying you need to close contact or quarantine due to being a close contact, as opposed to trying to find the 4 people in 4th period who sat with them in a group. Because that could lead to an inordinate amount of students being out of school.
So you're saying that close contacts in school are not going to be contacted?
That's correct. And Gina, would you like to refine my answer, because you deal with this so frequently? Okay.
No clarify. Okay, Mary, any other questions? Okay. Heather, any questions?
Thank you. We're still following the guidance that's coming from public health, and which is coming from the CDC. So it's the quarantining guidance that's coming all the way through the health organizations. And while we do absolutely expect at some point we will be peeling that back first, or peeling that back also, we just don't think that we should do everything all at one time.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Dr. Bergstrom, how many resources do we have currently over these last 2 years? Maybe it's changed recently, that are fully or partially spending their time contact tracing?
We have one person who does that work full time. We have someone who does some overflow work when necessary. And for a very long time, our nurses were also spending the majority of their time doing it. But we try very hard to not have that be the case anymore, because they were hired to take care of students who have other medical needs within the building.
And we have the ability to stop contact tracing if we want to, based on our policy, because we take into consideration not only CDC, who's basically been wrong on everything, and other organizations as well.
Could we make that decision? You could make that decision, yes.
What has Madison Public Schools done in terms of quarantining and contact tracing?
To the best of my knowledge, they've been following the public health guidance.
What about other school districts, especially ones that have made recent decisions to stop masking? Do you know? Maybe it's unfair. I know this information's coming at us fast, but
it is. People are making their decisions very quickly. And actually, the Household Plus was something that I discussed with another superintendent in the area. So people are trying to make sure that they're maintaining safe environments by also making decisions that were realistic within their systems. because they're having a very hard time with the capacity to contact trace, particularly in the surge of last month.
Yeah, trust me, I love the flexibility. I'm just wondering if we need it at all. Knowing the resources we're putting towards it, the impossibility of finding substitutes, and how strapped we are for resources. And I know you kind of want to peel it back one at a time, but I would propose that we might want to consider a different approach. Thank you.
Tim, go ahead.
You mentioned that no one will be masked going forward. We're still recommending masks, but it is optional. Is that correct?
That is, and I'm sorry, thank you for catching that, because that is absolutely not the case. Our recommendation is that we move to strongly encouraged, which means I think there will be many families who will continue to mask. So I'm very sorry that I misstated it in that way.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. You also mentioned that the CDC order requires masks on transportation. Is that the CDC recommends masks on transportation or requires it?
It is a requirement.
On all transportation? Not just federal transportation?
Public.
All public transportation. Okay.
School transportation is considered public transportation. That's a federal requirement.
Okay. That's it for me.
Troy?
I don't think I have any questions. I think it's a good proposal. I go on record that I am changing my position on the policy that we enacted on January 10th because the conditions have changed. Pandemics are unpredictable, and we were in a much different place 6 weeks ago than we are now. The trends are drastically decreasing in every possible metric you could look at. It appears that that trend's going to continue. We've got 7 more days until March 1st. In the past, as we were approaching the expiration of PHMDC's order, for me personally, there was always something that didn't feel right. Back in 2021, it was that our 512s were not able to be fully vaccinated. Cases may not have been trending down like they are now, and we had staffing issues or concerns. So I think we're in a much better place. So I think it's a good proposal, and I would support going masks strongly encouraged on March 1st.
Anna, any clarifying questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. Do we have any anticipation of what the community level transmission might be on March 1st? Has there been any projection done by the public health officials as far as where we would be? Because I kind of liked the idea of having our mask strongly encouraged to be in line with the level of community transmission in our district. And so I guess I'd be more comfortable with that if we know that it's going to be in that moderate range as far as that. Do we have any idea on whether or not that's anticipated by March 1st based on the current trending and that decline?
I don't think anybody has the confidence to do modeling based off of this because nothing has ever been exactly as we think it'll be. But as far as the impact of the decreasing cases and the 14-day average, I'm not sure if it would take us to moderate by March 1st or not.
Go ahead, Kevin, then I want to give Olivia and Sam an opportunity to speak.
Great. Do you have an estimate? I mean, maybe this is a difficult question to answer, but do you have an estimate of how that will free up resources in terms of going from the quarantining policy we have now, and the contact tracing we have now versus going to the household plus? I mean, again, it's a theoretical question. Are we going to maybe 25%? And I'm just very sensitive to the resources we're putting towards this, knowing the problems we have with resources in general.
How much of the time it will take for our one full-time person is difficult to tell because we don't know how removing the layer of masking protection will impact in-school transmission, and consequently how much time that person may need to spend with that. But overall, do I anticipate a decreased amount of resources? Overall, yes. Perhaps not initially, but overall, absolutely, with that one particular position.
Sam and Olivia, we'll give you an opportunity to weigh in here if you're comfortable. If you don't want to, that's okay too.
Hi. So when you're talking about the quarantining measures that we have in place now, you know, parents get the emails all the time that your kid has been in the class and, you know, they don't have to quarantine or they do. So when we go mask strongly encouraged, are parents going to be getting those emails? Are parents going to be notified that someone in their class has COVID?
Great question, and yes, we do plan to continue with that.
So that contact tracing will still be continued?
That component of it will, yes.
Will this be like, could I voice my opinion on this? Absolutely. So I think like having masks encouraged would definitely have people or students able to express themselves more, but I would also like to point out the massive divide that I already addressed. It's many people, they disagree, and they either disagree strongly or they agree strongly, and there's really hard to find a middleman in this situation. And I think with masks encouraged, it'll really like increase this divide, because not only is it like people voicing their opinions, but it's now like a visual aspect. You can see if someone wants to have their mask on, and then also if they want to take their mask off. And I think that that's definitely something that you guys should just like think about. I definitely agree that like expressing yourself is important, but also like the divide of that. And I also think that yeah, I think that I just wanted to point that out.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Bergstrom, do you want to comment on that? Oh, sorry, Sam, go ahead.
Sam.
No, you're good. I think another really big thing is when we do go mask strongly encouraged, I think education and keeping students updated about case numbers and trends is something that you should seriously consider. Dr. Bergstrom and principals of schools, you know, making sure students are still feeling safe, whether they're, you know, they're mask strongly encouraged or mask required or, you know, whatever. Making sure that students are getting that information and maybe having like, I know we talked about at the meeting a week ago that there would be like updates on Panther Vision that we would have, you know. And I think that would be good for community too, making sure everyone's still educated about current trends.
That was a great meeting that we had at the Superintendent's Advisory Council last week, because I had a whole agenda that was never touched, because this is really about what they want to talk about. And I really appreciated the input, and they asked amazing questions related to safety. And they also really promoted the idea that a lot of what we're sharing here needs to be shared with students too. And so we spoke about how to do that and how much of a difference that would make. For instance, many of the students on the council were surprised by our dashboard. They had not seen it before, despite the fact that we use it as a tool frequently. So I think that with the help of a lot of those, a lot of the students who are on the council, I think we can really help to better inform the student population about what's happening.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, what I would like Katie to do is put up 565 and then, oh, sorry, was there? Okay.
I was just gonna ask if like the emails that are directed to parents for like close contacts, or if there's like a COVID case in their class, would that go out to students as well, or could that be an option?
It hasn't thus far. I'm hesitant to promise it here before I speak with the people who actually do the process, but we'll talk about that if you think that's important.
Okay, so what you have on the screen before you is current standing policy 566. So I will open the floor for someone to make a motion to either not change that or we can amend that. Heather, your hand is up.
Hand is up. Can I say a couple comments before I do that, or do you want me to go right to the motion first?
I would say put the motion on the floor. We'll get a second, and then we can have a discussion on the motion.
Then that's what I'll do. I will make a motion to amend policy 566 as follows. Face coverings will not be required except when under local, state, or federal law and/or orders beginning on March 1st.
Okay, so what I understand you to say is the second paragraph of policy 566. It says, except that face coverings. All right, who's doing the typing? Face coverings will not be required indoors and instead will be strongly encouraged except when not required by local, state, or federal law and or orders beginning March 1st. Okay, is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion? All right, the motion.
Will second that because I want to
Okay.
discuss it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Now the floor is open for discussion. Heather, I will go back to you because you stated you wanted to discuss.
I just have a couple comments. First, I always like to start out with a positive. I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation right now. I just want to say I'm grateful for the teachers, administration, and staff who work so tirelessly on behalf of Oregon kids, regardless of opinions on masks. Their continued efforts and level of care is remarkable. So just wanted to say that. 2, I'm not a scientist, so I'm holding all comments in that area. 3, I want to clarify, we have followed PHMDC all school year because there was a mask mandate all school year thus far. Or extensions, mask mandates and or extensions.
There was not at the beginning of the school year. The beginning of the school year until November 27th, Public Health recommended that schools require masks.
Got it.
But
Okay.
it was not a mandate.
Perfect. And then, yeah, I think if we followed Dane County for this school year when they are taking away the mandate, so do we. So that's my very simple motion that barely got seconded.
All right, Troy, I think you said you had something, and then we'll go over to this side. Okay, who is first, Anna or Kevin?
Okay.
Go ahead, Anna, or go, well, you guys decided.
Are you going to grant?
fight it
Okay,
out?
cool. No, no, we don't have to
Rock,
do that.
paper, scissors,
We
here
don't
we
have to do
go.
I just wanted to say I didn't second the motion only because I personally think it's a little overcomplicated. What I'm trying to understand is we already have the flexibility in the policy to follow. I mean, many board meetings ago, we pushed for the ability to factor in CDC, PHDMC, MDC, whatever the heck it is, and all other medical authorities, what have you. So what I'm going to propose at some point, and we can obviously need to vote on this motion that's on the floor, is just something that's much more simple about making mass optional. That's the only reason I didn't second the motion.
Go ahead, Anna.
And the reason I support the motion, Heather, and I should have seconded it, but I was looking for the, I want to ensure that the transmission level is at that medium or lower level. And when you were modifying the motion, I couldn't see whether or not that was being kept in the motion or not, and that is in the upper paragraph. So it says, right?
No, she took, so the sentence should end after the.
Oh, so this is not the revised, this is
No.
still the current version. So you are taking out the medium or lower transmission.
Where she's ending the motion is after the parentheses with orders, period, and then adding beginning March 1st.
Beginning
Is
March
that
1st.
correct?
Okay.
Heather?
Yeah.
So it's taking out the level of transmission language.
Okay.
No,
I would support keeping the medium or lower level of community transmission in this statement from the standpoint that if we see a wave come through that of a different variant and suddenly we see greater transmission, then that puts the face covering, I guess, back in place within our schools if it's recommended by public health experts that we've referenced in the policy.
Sir, can I ask for the font to be enlarged for the guy from the side angle here? A little bit more.
That's a point of order.
Almost 50, sorry.
You can interrupt and do that.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, so the current motion states that we are sticking with the authorities that we look at, but it's changing where it just says, except that face coverings will not be required indoors, but will be strongly encouraged except when not required. So what that states is, why that paragraph is in there is because there's a federal regulation that it still has to happen on transportation, which is very different than an emergency health order. Just one. Okay, what is your motion?
Thank you for the bigger font. I needed that. Okay, the first paragraph is fine till community. Then accept that face coverings will not be required. Take out the indoors.
Okay.
And instead will be strongly encouraged. Take that out. And I'm just saying the except when under local, state, or federal law and or orders. Because the transportation and the other things, I feel like that has to be in there. So will not be required except when under, beginning March 1st, right.
Okay, so you do not have,
Oh, that's what.
you don't
yeah.
have the strongly encouraged language.
I
in it.
don't. Sorry, I didn't.
So
didn't
does
see
that second still stand, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry for any confusion.
okay.
So
Troy?
that was going to be my comment, I guess. And just to point out why I support removing instead will be strongly encouraged, even though that is absolutely what we want, I think that falls under administrative guidelines. And I don't think we want to put that into a policy because that needs to be flexible as administrative guidelines see fit based on all of these factors. So, that's really all I have to say. Support
Okay,
the
I
policy.
will let Dr. Bergstrom respond if she'd like about why you spoke to strongly encouraged.
Strongly encouraged really does just give, it's, thank you. It's strong language. And we really wanted to include strong language related to masking. It still is something that is strongly encouraged according to the health experts. So we wanted to make sure that was in there. The term optional doesn't have the same language heft that strongly encouraged does.
Mary, I think, and then Kevin.
So, my comment about this motion, now that it's been clarified, is decoupling it to community transmission because, I don't know about everybody else on the board, but I would prefer not to have this conversation bi-weekly. So, and I can envision, next winter this becoming an issue again. And so I like the fact that it's tied to community transmission rates. And should we need to have the masks put back into place, then we don't have to revisit it as a board. I also, as we all know, the case rates are coming down very nicely. Very happy to see that. The biweekly transmission rates are coming down by about 50% each week. But we're still in the, we're still in the high. So I would be much more comfortable tying it to a moderate or medium.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So first, I'd like to go on the record that the motion you put forward now makes sense to me, that it's in large font, and it's much simpler, and it's what I was looking for, so thank you, and I wish I could have the opportunity to second it, but thank you, Troy, for doing that. I guess the comment I'd make on the whole concept of case rate, as I said at the last board meeting, that it's all relative to the variant and the severity of the variant. Are we talking the common cold? Are we talking something that was more serious at the time of Delta? And we can't predict the future, and we should deal with those situations when they come to us and not now. As I said also at the last board meeting, public health, we've been following them come hell or high water for 2 years. They're making it optional. We need to simplify this. We need to move forward. It's time to let parents make their choices. And I will also state that it's also very important that those that choose to wear masks are not bullied or disrespected for wearing masks. I think that's a very important point to make. So we will respect everyone that wears a mask, and there will be, we don't allow bullying as it is, but we will make sure, I'm sure, as administrators and teachers, that will not be tolerated.
Any other comments? Since there is no more discussion, we will do that. So, Katie, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Garrison? Yes. Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak? No. Mr. Maring?
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta? No. Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 5-2. I just want to say a couple things. Before we move on about this board. We have not always agreed on this issue, and we have kept it civil. But I also want to compliment this board because I believe strongly in free speech, and we all do. And we have people that have agreed with us, and we've had people that have disagreed with us, and we're not done with this, right? but people have done so respectfully for the most part. But we've had people in this community that have attacked how we look, have attacked us personally, have attacked our character, and have attacked different characteristics about us personally. And that is not acceptable. And so I want to thank you all for taking the high road, and I want to commend you, because those things are not acceptable. Because as Kevin said, that's bullying that we don't have to take. And that's very different than somebody disagreeing with us and coming here in a respectful manner or emailing us in a respectful manner. But we've had community members that have not done that. And so I give you guys a lot of credit because you've taken it. So thank you for all that you do. And now we're moving forward again, and we're in a different place, and we'll keep taking the high road and make sure that our students are safe and healthy, and we'll move forward. So thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is committee reports, D, discussion items. We'll start with policy. Anna.
We have a policy committee meeting scheduled for Monday, March 7th at 5:30 virtually. That's the only report I have from policy.
All right, Troy, visioning.
Let's see, we have not met, but we do have a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday.
Worth Woods.
We have not met either, but we have been active. We do have some budget money available to us to, if you may recall from Worth Woods, one of the goals for this spring is to make sure that we have a trail that goes through the woods. And it's really opening a trail up to make it more passable. It's not creating a new trail. And so we've gotten a couple of bids to do that. We are moving forward to get that done before the frost is out of the ground. It will make it a whole lot cleaner. And at our next meeting, I would anticipate having a draft of our strategic plan for that property.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is Athletic Department Programs Update. I believe Brittany will be coming up to join us.
She is. She is making her way up here right now, and I'll be in charge of the clickers. So Brittany, just give me a nod. Okay, thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to share. You can see I'm kind of starting out with something fun. Our Oregon Athletic Booster Club, I actually had a chance to attend the Booster Club meeting last night. On the slide for you are some of the projects that they've helped fund for us this year. They're a parent-led volunteer organization. They kind of operate on membership dues. They have some like large corporate sponsorships that they'll do, but they've given, I'd say, well over 30 grand back to our student athletes so far this year, and our coaches and our programs. And I've really appreciated the opportunity to work with them in the capacity that I have so far. They meet about once a month, and they'll kind of go through any funding requests at that time. They also do senior scholarships. They award 4 scholarships on an annual basis. And I know just recently those scholarship opportunities opened up to our seniors, so they'll start to kind of look through those application requests once that period or that window closes. And they're always looking for new members and partnerships. If you'll slide next, please. Thank you. Some highlights. You know, one of the things I left behind when I came here was a place where I had a ton of long-standing relationships. And that's probably one of the scariest parts of kind of starting fresh, is that you don't know people. So I'm a little over 4 months in, and I feel like I'm getting to a place where I have some of those relationships now. I'm feeling more and more settled every day. We have an awesome administrative team here at the high school that I'm able to bounce ideas off on, without an issue. They're very willing to help out at events and, to help with supervision. And so I've just appreciated all the different kind of people that I've had the chance to interact with, from students to coaches, colleagues, both, internally here in the district, but then also within the conference, and so on and so forth. So every day gets better, right? I want to highlight a couple things. Student leadership and recognition. I think at a previous meeting you heard that I had the chance to take 4 students up to the WIA Sportsmanship Summit, and that was in Stevens Point in December. From that, the kids were really motivated and they were wanting to bring something home.
On a side token, our coaches were kind of talking about, how can we increase leadership here too? So on March 16th, we're going to be hosting a leadership summit, actually right here in the Innovation Center. We had our coaches and our club or co-curricular advisors had the chance to nominate underclassmen, or I should say 9th through 11th graders, and we extended an invite today to 82 students to be able to participate in this leadership summit. So I'll be looking for those, kind of field trip permission slips to come back in, but we're looking at doing that the morning of March 16th. So I'm hoping, even if 50% of them say that, it's something they're interested in, we'll have, 40 some, student leaders kind of going through a morning that we're kind of helping dictate for them in terms of the prompts and the different projects that we're going to have them do that morning. So I've got Kevin May and Matt Weber are kind of the other two who are helping me coordinate that. So I appreciate them. April 13th, we are hosting a senior signing ceremony in the Performing Arts Center. So I have a message out to the whole senior class. Anybody with plans to participate in college athletics has been invited to attend on that day for an opportunity to be recognized. So I think I'm at 18 or 19 kids now who have reached out, and hopefully that list will continue to grow, as we get closer to April. And then the last one I threw on there was the video board in the gym. In our main gym here, we have an amazing video board, but a lot of games, it just sat blank since I took over because I didn't know how to use it. I've had some training, and I kind of know now how to get content uploaded to it. So I actually went on Panther Vision recently and put a request out for any students who are willing to help operate the video board on game nights, or if there are talented students who might be willing to help with content to go up on the board. So hopefully I get some student volunteers in the future, and maybe even looking into next year so we can get that up and running more. I then looked at some kind of what are some department strengths and then what are some areas for growth. So one of the department strengths is our high student participation numbers. On the slide in front of you, I pulled numbers for our fall sports and our winter sports this year. I know the bottom is a little bit hard to see, but that's just broken down by what the different sports are. Highest in the fall is football, highest in the winter is boys basketball. Overall, there are 187 student athletes participating this winter, and 377 students participated in the fall. So I can't wait to see what spring looks like, but I can tell you there's over 100 signed up for track, which starts really soon on March 7th. Then this next slide is just kind of a look over the last 5 years. What has our participation looked like? And this one I broke it down by season. And then the really tall one or the higher one on the right is just kind of the overall numbers. So the one that's a little bit goofy is in orange. That was when our pandemic started. So you notice there's nothing orange in the spring because you may recall we didn't have athletics that spring. But overall, I think the numbers are really good, and I think we'll see probably our highest bar yet for spring once that kind of royal blue bar fills out for this year. Some other strengths I feel for the athletic department, our athletics are accessible to our students, to our athletes, to our competitors. Very few of our sports have any sort of fee or cost associated with them, which I think is a plus. It's something that we want to continue to look at and figure out, what are other ways that we can help where there may be fees. In terms of our annual budget, there's a lot of things that the school budget does cover on an annual basis, things like busing, entry fees. Some sports have an entry fee to go, like a cross-country meet. We'll pay to go compete, whereas a basketball game, we don't go to play in a basketball game at another school. So there's a variety of sports that do have those kind of fees to participate in the meets or the games, whereas others don't. So that's all something that's built into the budget. Coaching stipends, that's all something that's built into the budget. Those are not expenses that are turned on to any sort of participant or things like that. The one where we have seen some participant fees is our ice fees in hockey, because that's an added fee for the rental of the facility. We just have a couple sports where we do have a facility rental fee associated with them because it's not on district-owned property. And one of the other things I wanted to highlight is our family volunteers. We have a few sports where our parents actually and our families play a pivotal role in helping that event function. Our swim meets, we have parents who volunteer to time at the swim meets. At our hockey games, we have parents who volunteer to serve in the penalty box and as scorekeepers. And that's not something that we necessarily have in all our sports. So I'm appreciative of those who have been willing to fill in those positions. And I want to continue to look at, how can our athletic department maybe help take some of that burden off of the parents so that they can be there to, enjoy the events. Some areas for growth. I'm big on goals. So staff recruitment is one area. Athletics has not been exempt to, some of the struggles we've seen, not only, here within our building, but, within our state and our greater country area. I've struggled to fill some vacancies, even some for spring sports coming up. So I'm going to continue to try and get the word out there. Thankfully, Erica has helped me with some social media posts, and we're trying to get creative in terms of getting the word out that we have some vacancies. Another goal I have for myself is that youth sports task force to kind of bring it back and provide an opportunity for us to get together as a group to discuss kind of the future for not only OHS athletics, but, the district as a whole from the bottom all the way up. And then the last one I threw on there is the weight room. On the right is just a little flyer that I had made, and there's several of them hanging throughout the school, just kind of letting people know when the weight room is open. And I want to continue to promote it and provide some workout guidance for our student athletes when they're in there so that they're making the best use of their time and they're hopefully getting busy, getting stronger. And then I'm going to transition and steal Dr. Bergstrom's thunder a little bit. She normally gets to highlight our athletes and the great things they're doing, so I'm snagging that for tonight. So the first one here is Brandon Little. He is heading to state wrestling this Thursday afternoon is when he starts. He'll have the potential to continue on into Friday, depending on how he does in Thursday's competition. So congratulations to Brandon on qualifying. That's going to be at the Cole Center. Here you see our wrestling ladies. They actually headed up to lacrosse back at the end of January. This was the first year that the WIA sponsored girls only wrestling state tournament. So there was, what did I hear, like 200 some girls that competed in that event. So the feedback I had from the coaches and the girls is that it was an awesome event, and they're looking forward to taking more girls in the future. Next up, we have our cheer team. They actually just took 5th place at their state competition on Saturday. They were in Oshkosh. Coach Kelly was ecstatic with how they performed, and so she had nothing but great things to say about the girls and how they competed on Saturday. She did share 8 teams qualified, so for them to take 5th, she was really, really happy with how they did. Our boys swim team. They finished 19th at the state meet in Waukesha this past weekend. They were projected to finish somewhere in the 20s, so they overperformed where they were projected to. Over the course of this season, the team as a whole broke 11 of the 22 school records that we track, which is remarkable. So we've got some work to do in terms of updating our record boards, but we'll happily do that over at the pool. So congratulations to, the 6 team members who did qualify and compete at state. Mason Konopacki, David Stevenson, Josh Weber, Spencer Steluka, Blake Pankratz, and Oliver Weideman. We have a basketball player who just hit 1,000 career points last week, Tuesday, in our win over Edgewood, Ryan Panzer. Ryan would be the first one to say that he didn't do it alone. But 1,000 points is a really big accomplishment in the sport of basketball. I think we have less than 5 in the high school who have accomplished that throughout their time here at Oregon. So congratulations to Ryan. And then one of my final ones here, congratulations. We have a forward hockey line who have reached 255 regular season points that the 3 of them have accumulated together, which is the highest in the state. It is Joe Romer, Kyle Rohr, and Andrew Jenke. In addition, Kyle has hit 100 regular season points, which is the highest of anyone in the state. He's a little bit behind the record of Mark Johnson. So those of you who might know the great Mark Johnson, Andrew has his goal set on trying to beat that record. He's got a few more to go yet, but he's in really good company up there in the record book. And then the last one I have tonight is girls basketball recently held a cancer awareness night where they honored a local community member, Brent Crowley. Through their efforts, they donated $2,318 to the UW Carbone Cancer Center in honor of Brent. So it was a really fun night to be a part of, and the team worked really hard to raise those funds so that they could donate them. So that's kind of what I have for you in my quick update.
Great, thank you, Brittany. Okay, I'll open up the floor if people have questions or comments, things they want to ask Brittany. Kevin, go ahead.
It's appropriate that the scoreboard is up there, and I love that you're going to put some work into having some information on there, because we've always kind of wondered, it's like, wow, that's a pretty sweet scoreboard that's sitting there without a lot of information. But you wonder if there's a class or something might be able to take on some projects if individual students don't approach you.
Yeah, I guess it's something we did have a class in the past, so hopefully somebody's able to pick it up in the future, but that particular one, I understand, is no longer being offered. Fingers crossed, though, because I'd love it.
Is that all, Kevin?
Yeah, could you expand a little on the weight room? That's one kind of near and dear to my heart, because I think it's an area that we're really behind other school districts on, and frankly, you kind of saw it on the basketball court when we played Edgewood. We beat them, which is great, and that's the most important thing, but from a strength perspective, it's a district, or it's a school that does a really good job with their program.
Yeah, so currently the weight room's open from 4 to 5 after school. We typically have a coach who volunteers to kind of serve as a supervisor in that space. They're not necessarily instructing. What the kids are doing is we have an app called Team Builder, and coaches are able to go into the app and kind of create a calendar. So if I'm a swimmer, there can be kind of workouts that are more customized to what I might need versus someone who's maybe a volleyball player. They might, choose to do a different set of exercises. So that's been a really nice resource for the kids to have. There's videos on there that they can watch so that they can get the form and the technique down. So just kind of expanding on the offerings that we have in there. One of the things I've looked into recently is what are other school districts doing with their weight rooms. There's several different models out there. Some people don't pay anybody to chaperone and supervise the space. Some schools have a dedicated coach who's in there, maybe an off-season coach. Some schools just have a strength and conditioning coordinator who's in there too. So there's lots of different options that are out there, and it's something I want to continue to look at.
So without diving a lot of detail in our conference, what % have a full-time strength and conditioning coach?
I'd say less than 10.
Okay. But it's
more rare than common from what I saw.
Okay, thanks.
Tim.
Just one last thing about the weight room, just to leverage off of Kevin's comments. If there's any way that athletes that go on to universities can use that weight room during off times, during particularly the holiday break, I think it brings great awareness to our programs at those universities in terms of recruitment and things like that. And I think it's a great opportunity to use relatively recent graduates to inspire some of our students who are also in those weight rooms working out during off-season times.
Good idea.
Any other? Go ahead, Mary.
And is my understanding correct that students can also choose to take a study period and go to the weight room and work out there? Is that right? Or
I need to tap into someone else for that one.
okay. All right.
I'll go next.
Go ahead.
So Brittany, I just wanted to give you a personal thank you, and the community a personal thank you. If anyone doesn't know, Brent Crowley is my brother-in-law. And that night was really, really meaningful to our family. So a big thank you to you and the community for what you've organized. It was incredible. A couple of things that I didn't see and I didn't really expect to see in here, but I guess just some awareness of some issues that are out there. Number one is the hockey ice rental fees that was mentioned a month or two ago. Again, I didn't expect it to be addressed, but I think it's something that we do need to look at. And then secondly is youth sports at the 7-8 level. I'm continuing to hear some equitable issues with those 7-8 sports. Specifically, some of the A and the B teams do not get the same opportunities. And I know there's a lot of challenges there. We've been over it in years past, but I just want to point out that this does go against the impact section of our decision-making policy. So I just hope that we can continue to be looking at those opportunities for our student athletes and make sure that we're providing equitable opportunities. But otherwise, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
I know the question or that comment wasn't directed, but one thing I want to point out from a positive perspective related to that with the basketball program is Oregon this past season, or just recently, conducted a B-level tournament. They are impossible to find, and the fact that we had volunteers and organized their own tournament is something that the school district and the basketball board should be very proud of. So even though I know it can be an issue, it's a really challenging issue, and the basketball community stepped forward to run that tournament, so I think it's important people know that.
All right, any other questions? Thanks, Brittany. Okay, moving on to information items, visioning and strategic planning. I'll turn it over to Dr. Bergstrom.
Sorry, we're planning weather updates as we're also conducting a board meeting, so we're juggling a few balls tonight. But for our visioning and strategic planning, everyone has seen our framework, and we're really excited about what's coming up because we're hoping to have an opportunity to interact with more members of the public. Because as you know, getting input is a key piece of our Portrait of a Graduate work, and honestly, an important part of everything we do. So, on the night of Monday, March 7th, from 7 to 8:15 in the high school commons, we're going to have the OSD Info Night planning for today and tomorrow. So, we will be really taking in feedback, listening and learning from people who are there. We'll have a station regarding Portrait of a Graduate and the vision that's connected to that. We'll have a station on student achievement and wellness, sort of the continuum of supports idea that we have spoken about here at the board level several times. We'll have a station on staff retention and recruitment, because as we know, that's going to be a significant, important part of what we do moving forward. And we will be sharing with people who attend how we are prioritizing the use of our ESSER 3 funding and getting some input from them on that. So we will be sending out information to our families. We hope a lot of people are able to be there, because the more people who attend and are able to give us some input, the better. I'll move right into the teaching and learning update if you don't mind. Some good things, of course. And it depends, I guess, on how you feel about reptiles, whether or not this is a good thing. But if you just love reptiles, you can see, look at these kids interacting with them so well. As part of Ms. Konopacki's naturalist program, she, at the time this was taken, she was at Brooklyn Elementary. She's spending a certain amount of time at each elementary school and moving through with several weeks at each school. So you can see that we had some pretty actively engaged kids there, didn't we? The next thing would be the Spotlight on Learning with the Forest Edge buddies. And I don't know how many of you think back to your elementary school experience and what the Reading Buddy program was for you when you were little. I had a reading buddy. I was a reading buddy. I remember it very well. Having those cool older kids come to your classroom to read stories with you, that was fun stuff. And so Forest Edge, having the 5th grade in with the kindergartner, it's a great opportunity. I'm so glad that we are providing that for both the older and younger students. And then another spotlight on learning related to middle school science. Here you see Miss Grady's 7th grade students doing a nutrient identification lab by testing a variety of food substances. And you also see that they're doing it in the double science classroom that was a part of the wing that was added to the high school in the 2014 referendum. And that is a beautiful room that can fit 2 full science classes when needed, or sometimes it's just one class that really gets to spread out. And once again at the middle school, you get to see Miss Rip's class, that's 7th grade English, and they're creating books for students in 1st to 3rd grade, and they're sending these electronic nonfiction picture books to classrooms around the world. And then students from other countries are leaving feedback for our students regarding their picture books. So that's a pretty amazing way for students to understand just how connected we all are. Speaking of connection, Ms. Coutre at the high school, our art teacher, she had 35 student artists participate in the memory project, and that is portraits of young children who have been orphaned from other countries. They send in one of probably the few photos that they have for our student artists to create a portrait of them and send back the photo and the portrait with a special handwritten note. And if you have been down to the Black History Month exhibit in our art gallery, you will see these portraits are displayed as part of the work down there. And then I also want to point out we've got some great school to career stuff happening too all the time. And I just want to mention that this is a really important part of what we do also. This young man, Connor, he is at Dupuy Service on Highway MM, and he has been for since September of 2020. So he's been there for quite a while now. And he is pursuing his automotive repair degree at Madison College. So next we were going to go to the continuum of supports, unless, Mr. Tanner, you would like to postpone whatever you would prefer. I'm glad.
I mean, go ahead. Do you want to go ahead? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a really important thing. I just want to make sure that the weather's I don't know if the weather's taking a turn.
The weather's not bad yet.
Okay. All right. Let's go. This is a very important thing.
I promise you I'll be done by 5 a.m. I'll be quick. I just get excited about these things and talk too much sometimes. Okay, so continuum of supports. You may ask, why are we talking about this? This is a follow-up from the board work session on behavior that we had recently. And in order to talk about broader ways that we address behavior, we have to give you some background information. We refer to this as a continuum of supports. You can go to the next slide. I have 4 learning targets here for you. First of all, the learning target is, I understand that universal instruction, which is kind of an education-y term, refers to what's taught to all students. Universal, I mean, obviously it's only to our students, not the entire universe, but that's a term we use. Second one is that the OSD continuum of supports provides a consistent framework for teaching, reviewing, and extending those universal expectations. There will be a graphic, there will be pictures. Number 3, the OSD continuum of supports applies to both academics and behavior. We're going to talk about behavior tonight, and at a future session, we'll use the same graphic and same framework to talk about academics, but this is a follow-up on the behavior session. And then the last learning target is that the continuum has 3 levels of support that are used according to individual learner needs. It's actually 3 levels of support sort of in either direction. And you'll see what I mean when we go to in a couple slides. In order to understand this, I'm still trying to define some of the education-y terms. So here is one important term that will come up on the graphic. So there's two terms here. Differentiation, which you might have heard us talk about, differentiating instruction. There's another one that's related but different. It's called scaffolding. So differentiation is you're actually changing the instruction to meet individual student needs. Scaffolding is providing some extra assistance or supports to students so that they can hit and achieve the same learning target. So an academic example of differentiation might be something like providing books that are accessible to like all different students. So we know that students may not all be at the same reading level, so we would provide students with books, especially emerging readers, that are things that are appropriate for where they're learning, especially at the younger levels. That would be differentiation, because you're basically saying you're not all reading the same book, because that wouldn't be helpful to many of you. You're reading a different book that's appropriate to your current skill level. Scaffolding, an example of that from academics would be like if you were in social studies and you were studying historical causes of conflicts. Scaffolding would be possibly like having extended explanations of some of the terms for students who don't already know them. And I'm going to use a sports analogy. I think because Kevin was talking about basketball earlier, it's got me in the basketball mind. So differentiation is kind of like when you have really little kids, because we both coached our boys with youth basketball, we would lower the hoops down to 8 feet when you got the little kids, because having them try to hit the 10-foot hoop, no one would ever even hit the net. They'd all get frustrated and quit. So we lower it to 8. So that's differentiating for those kids because like that's appropriate for where they're at. Scaffolding would be more like if we kept the hoops at 10 feet, but we like literally had scaffolds or a ladder, and we said, hey, if you're really short, you can like climb up the ladder so you can like dunk the ball or whatever like that. So the idea is that with scaffolding, everybody's using exactly the same standard. It's just you're providing more supports to let them get there that they don't already have. Examples on this slide talk about visual representations, graphic organizers, background knowledge primers, and things like that. This glossary itself is a scaffold for you. Some of you, if you came into this and you already knew what these were and some of these acronyms were, great. But if you didn't, this is a scaffold for you so that all of you can achieve the same understanding. Next slide, please. Here are those aforementioned acronyms. So PBIS is one that you hear us throw around. It stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. It isn't a curriculum, like we don't necessarily teach PBIS, although sometimes it's kind of confused that way, but it's a framework that provides consistency. And the idea of it is that rather than just disciplining poor behavior, we want to support all the positive behavior. That's why we teach people this is the way that we do this here, and we encourage the positive rather than just disciplining the negative. Another acronym is PLC, which is Professional Learning Community. This is what this is a research-based process that is very highly effective, that has teachers working collaboratively to plan, review, and revise learning based on student data. So we take all the data that students have, we look at it, there's a process we go through, and we've sent people to training for this so that we can be sure to do it consistently across the district. I'd say we have a ways to go, but we're getting there, and it's a really good way to do it. I'm going to just keep blasting through, but feel free to stop me if you have questions. All right. So this is the OSD continuum of supports. Notice the diamond in the background. That's going to become significant in a minute. But where we start with everybody is that level 1 in the middle, which is universal. So this is the instruction generally that for all students. Now, whether we're talking about academics, this is like the teacher in the classroom delivering a large group lesson. So it's the instruction for everybody. Or when we talk about PBIS, these are like the general rules of behavior and expectations for how we all get along that we do at a building-wide or district-wide or classroom-wide level. So that's what everybody has. Now, that's what teachers do in the classroom, and they talk about the results with their PLC and they customize it. Now, as you move out from level 1, we have level 2 and level 3. So level 2 on the left is just-in-time scaffolding. So this is where you have, if something doesn't work for the students in the universal, either we figure that out because of formative assessment or they just don't get it, or we know, for example, based on something else, that they don't have everything they need to understand and access what we're talking about, we provide some scaffolding just in time. So this level 2 is something that the teacher will do, usually in conjunction, sometimes just on their own and sometimes with some specialists like interventionists, special ed teachers, therapists, things like that. So this provides students with that extra support they need to achieve the same standard that everybody does. Level 3, as we move even farther over, this is like really intensive and individualized intervention. So this is like you started at level 1, level 2 also didn't work, and like they're still not experiencing success, then we move to level 3. So this is basically done by specialists. So this is like probably mostly outside of what the classroom teacher is doing. So that's on one side of the continuum. It's a continuum though, because there's also the other side. There's the right side. So for example, if students either come in and they already know what you're teaching in the universal, or they catch on really quick, then we want to continue their growth in learning. We want to make sure that they're continually challenged, and so we have a just-in-time extension. So rather than a scaffolding, we have an extension, something that extends the application of what they're learning or depth to it. And that's usually done in the classroom, maybe with some specialists. Moving on even farther, there's an even smaller group that's the level 3, targeted learning experiences. And so that's really intensive, individualized learning. That takes a lot of forms, but it's also generally, or sometimes out of the classroom, sometimes within the classroom, but just a really individualized experience. Okay, so that's the general thing. And the reason the diamond is important is because it's kind of like those pyramids that you saw with behavior that are like turned on their end, but they're kind of smushed together. So we've got the whole side. Go ahead to the next one where we see the pyramids. Now, you'll recall from the behavior workshop or work session that we had those diamonds that represented the actual data for the middle school and the high school. Darcy went through and analyzed all the K-6 behavior data and aggregated it. And so what we did basically is on the left is the pyramid that reminds you of the different percentages that are expected. And this behavior model uses PBIS. These are sort of the data and distributions. The actual data for what we're observing from this year are listed in that chart there. So obviously in that top tier, the visual graphics are not actually to scale. That top red part is like 1 to 5%. That is what the normed data nationally of PBIS experts kind of expects things to be at. That's pretty typical. That's where we're at. We're between 1 and 5% depending on the school and the grade level. In that next tier, I keep saying tier, I have to correct myself. The national model uses tiers. Wisconsin DPI uses levels. So I got to stop myself and say levels. So level 3 is that 1 to 5%. Level 2 is that 5 to 15%. And level 1 is where we kind of want to be, which is like the 80 to 90% of people, which is where we're at. If you look at the bottom line on that OSD distributions, really high levels, which means everybody's doing the universal expectations, which is great. Now, what this data, here's an important thing because this came up in the workshop. When we talk about the behavior, these are only things that rise to the level of either like an office referral or like a call home. So somebody at the workshop, I can't remember who, asked like, wow, do you send a referral for every time a kid, whatever, does something in class? No, this is not like every instance of insubordination or not following rules. These are the things that arise to the level of like administrative intervention. What's kind of interesting here, and it doesn't mean that like all the behaviors are perfect. It just means these are the ones that that generally go beyond what the teacher generally does, because teachers deal with all these things all the time, either through PBIS or through that kind of that level 2, scaffolding, like reminders, reteachings, that sort of thing. So they're constantly coaching the behavior. This is just kind of what gets referred. So when you see this referral, this doesn't mean that like 90% of our kids are walking around like perfect angels and have fully gotten it. You all are perfect angels, I'm sure, but it doesn't mean that like that's true. So if you ask a teacher like, well, I heard that 90% of your kids are always perfect. Why do you have a hard job? Okay, that's not the message we're trying to give here. They deal with a ton. They deal with it all the time. These are just the things that rise above that. The other thing that's a really important thing to keep in mind here is that This data, although it's kind of in line with what is typical in a year, this year does not feel typical. There is just a lot that teachers are dealing with. There's a lot of, and even if it's not like bad behavior, there's just a lot of like people who are just, students are dealing with a lot and they've had a pretty traumatic time. And so there's a lot of things, there's a lot more needs that teachers have to deal with. There's a lot of emotions going on. So this year does not feel like a typical year. There's just a lot of need out there. So and that sometimes gets expressed as behavior that would be sort of outside of our expectations that teachers deal with in, generally a very loving and caring way, which is what prevents that from arising up to the administrative office level because our teachers are so good at that. But don't think that that means that like people are all, great. There's just a lot that's going into that to make sure that that happens the way that it does. All right, next slide. So this is just an example of some of the things we do in that continuum of supports. So if you envision that pyramid that goes off to the left side, rotated on its side, you basically have the universal in the beginning, which is, teaching about the lessons that we, the behaviors that we expect. And we do a lot with social emotional learning. We have morning meetings where you check in with kids, and at the elementary level we say, hey, what zone are you in? And we teach students how to articulate what their feelings are, being in one of the colored zones. And so we do a lot of that. Now, if you move a little farther to the left, students who are having some difficulty with some of the expected behaviors, we do a lot of reteaching because you can't expect somebody to do something that they don't know or haven't been taught. It might go with some natural consequences like the loss of a privilege of some sort. And then you can, as it kind of scales up, because it's a continuum, you might have a little conference with the kid, take them aside, try to talk about like what's going on, do some probing, try to support them in whatever they need. But it might mean that a student needs to take a break. Sometimes it's just hard. They get really frustrated. Their self-regulation is down. So that might be something you would do. And if that doesn't work, level 3 is where you get into some really individualized, customized responses to kids. So you might have a check-in, check-out, restorative circles, restorative justice. Some groups that counselors typically meet with are student services people that actually teach social skills to children, or regulation strategies to keep their emotions at sort of like an expected level, those sort of things. Really high, really far on that list is like suspension for really egregious behaviors. And that all those things generally are done with, that's the part that gets an administrative contact. So those are the things on the left. On the right, we have the opposite of that, where it's like, hey, we have positive note cards, positive cards mailed home, or like at the high school, they talked about the large number of positive referrals they had. So that would be, again, not just disciplining bad behavior, but really encouraging good behavior. They have, some people have like PBIS tickets, or they call them like gotchas, or Panther Pride, or different things like that, where it's like, hey, I noticed you doing something really good. So it's just a random thing that a staff member might see that praises a student for doing what is expected, which is great. Encourage the good behavior. And then level 3, some schools have interesting things like you get to be on safety patrol as a leader for the students, usually for younger students, or you get to be the superhero of the month, or you get to be a welcoming committee, or like a mentor for a new student. Just some like added leadership activities that really honor that student's ability, or their like, I don't know, their leadership abilities or their ability to demonstrate that good behavior. So that is basically, and I think that's it actually. Or actually, no, go one more. Okay, so here are the learning targets. So I'm going to ask you, here's a technique. If you agree with this statement, thumbs up. If you're not quite sure, sideways. And if it's a no, go down. So do you understand that universal instruction refers to what's taught to all students? I'm asking you guys too. Sam, Olivia, all right. Excellent, we were successful on that one. Learning target number 2, the OSD Continuum Supports provides a consistent framework for teaching, reviewing, and extending universal expectations. Sweet, my formative assessment is going really well right now. 3, the Continuum of Supports applies to both academics and behavior. Okay, pop quiz, which one did we talk about tonight? Oh, very good, nice job. You are still awake, even at 9:43 at night. And the continuum has 3 levels of support. It's actually 3 on one side, 3 on the other, according to individual learner needs. Thumbs up, down, or sideways? Excellent. I'll take questions now, unless the question is just, can we go home now? In which case, the answer is yes.
We have 15 minutes, or we have to have a motion by the
Yep.
majority of the board to continue past 10. So does anyone have any quick questions for John? Go ahead.
Can I just go really quick? The behavior data, the grid or the chart was really helpful to see that from K through 12. My only question, I guess, is regarding those 712 numbers. Do those, I mean, it makes sense in my head that those are going to be higher just because of middle school, but does that follow national trends that we see that kind of spike at that grade level?
Yeah, there's a lot of developmental stuff that happens between like grades 6 and 8. And we know from other data that that's where a lot of like initial use of like alcohol and other drugs starts. That's where people are, dealing with a lot of those like individuality type issues, that sort of like finding boundaries. So there's a lot of developmental aspects of that happens at that age. And so there's a lot of reteaching. There's a lot of working to try to curb that individualistic, predictable exploration of boundaries into ways that are more productive rather than not. So, yeah, that's common. That's a national trend that you tend to see student achievement data kind of on whole kind of go down a little bit in middle school and then go back up in high school. For those same reasons, it's a real challenge. It's a challenging age.
Thanks, John.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, John. All right, Superintendent report.
Thank you for fitting me in. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. All right, so I will be fast, but I will be fast with fun stuff. Like National School Counseling Week. Look at how large of a counseling staff we have. And I want to remind people that the school board was really, really strong in pushing us forward in what do we need to have as far as staffing to meet mental health needs. So you can see we really have an amazing counseling staff. So many thanks to them. School Bus Driver Week, that was a week in February. We also had School Bus Driver Day. That was a nice day in fall. And then we'll have a breakfast for them in April too, because they are very appreciated people. A Certificate of Achievement Award from the Office of the Governor for Chris Mitchell and Nate Marr related to their sustainability education. Greg Granberg, our School to Career Coordinator, was awarded the Business Impact Award by the Oregon Chamber of Commerce. We also had a News 3 story featuring Dr. Anderson and Head Administrative Assistant Julie Fisher talking about how in the world we get adults into every classroom at a time of high absences. We also had another News 3 on Appreciation Station, which was the brainchild of our communications department. And we have Liz Galicia, an OMS English teacher, being interviewed because she received quite a few of them. And so she was one of the people that he spoke to talk about how does that feel? And her answer was pretty good. This is always so sweet. 100 days of school, and kids find ways to celebrate the number 100. And yes, indeed, you can see on the left upper corner, there are some little ones who have decided to dress as if they were 100. We also have some regional spelling bee qualifiers. Carolyn Canny, Connor Reed, and Joe Walsh. Congratulations to them. We also have, we have a Science Olympiad. I'm really excited about this one too because they did some pretty amazing work in the Science Olympiad. They all medaled at regionals, and they were in a variety of competitions. So Michaela Hammond, Jillian Onick, and Peyton Schroeder, they represented OHS Science very, very well. So congratulations to them. The middle school started their own German Honor Society, and you can see they received what would you call that? So commendation from the Federation, American Association of Teachers of German. And then, of course, I've referred to this a couple of times already, but our Black History Month OHS tree display and the art that's in the art gallery. Really, if you can read real closely in the part in the center, it's, really about having roots, but, dreaming big and dreaming forward. And then our artist, who's featured in the art gallery, Desiree Mayo. You see her there in the red sweatshirt, and in the picture on the lower half where she has a colorful sweatshirt around her waist. This has been a really wonderful experience for our students. And last week at the Edgewood High School game, they had many people visiting the art gallery during the game, or during, halftime and such. And then the Addams Family musical that was featured this weekend. Very, very proud of everybody who was a part of that terrific endeavor. Mike Doucette, Jennifer Yancey, and all of the students that are involved in that. Just many thanks to them for bringing so much joy to so many people.
All right, that brings us to closing. Thanks, everybody. It was a long meeting, a lot of important topics. And I know we had the update about athletics tonight, but we'll look for future agendas, bringing together some different aspects of the school district where a lot of students participate that's non-academic. I think it's really important that we hear about some of the other co-curriculars, extracurricular things that are happening inside and outside the classroom that really enriches us. So I also want to thank Sam and Olivia. You guys were troopers for your first meeting, being here for 3.5 hours. So thank you very much. We look forward to having more of your input. And I know you've given Dr. Bergstrom some things to think about.
And I think I can give them a little something special here too, because they probably haven't looked at their email, but there is no school tomorrow due to weather. So.
All right. So we'll go to checkout quick. Sam and Olivia, anything additional?
I'd just like to thank everyone. It was a really good experience getting to be part of the meeting. We had some interesting topics tonight, so I'd just like to thank you all, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it was a fun experience. It was definitely long, but it was something it was definitely a learning experience. I've never experienced something like this, so I definitely liked it.
Great, thank you. All right, Kevin. Good. Anna. Tim. Mary. Heather. Troy.
I'll go. We've got 9 minutes. So, I just have to talk about the swim team. So I had the opportunity to go to the state swim meet this past weekend. As you know, my son is a 4-year swimmer, and this was a culmination of those 4 years. And he would say that the swim team was really one of his favorite parts of high school. And as Brittany mentioned, there was really no shortage of athletic accomplishments for the swim team this year. They set a lot of new school records, so I hope we have a good budget for updating that record board at the pool. But really what I want to talk about is the camaraderie that the swim team has, really common among any sport or club. But I'll talk about the swim team. I mean, this group of boys, they just really care about each other, and these clubs and athletics bring kids together from different groups that they normally wouldn't meet in high school. And they hang out together all the time, morning practice, in school, after school, on weekends, online. They're gaming together. And I know every athletic club and every team probably has that too. So I just want to say that I hope every student takes the opportunities to join a sport or a club so that they can get these incredible experiences too. It's really what the whole child is all about. And athletics are a really big part of that. As well as our clubs. So just following up on what Brittany was sharing with the numbers, it's really great to see the high participation levels and to see that increasing, because it's just a huge part of what we can provide. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Troy. Okay, also make sure you get March 7th on your calendars. I think the district will certainly be sending out more information, and we'll probably get an invite from Katie, but please mark your calendars for that. That's a big night for us to interact with the community and share some information, and most importantly, learn from our community about thoughts that they have. So, and then Katie would like us to stay after the meeting if you have a couple minutes to sign the orders for the resolutions that we had tonight. So, all right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:53. Thanks, everybody.